Okay, so welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I'm genuinely so grateful that you all chose to spend your afternoon or early evening with us tonight for the Flavors of Canada Canadian Whisky Masterclass. And by the looks of it, this is possibly the largest online Canadian whiskey tasting that's ever been done, but I think Davin can probably tell me if that's true or not. But at the very
That's
least,
true.
it's definitely the biggest one this year, which perhaps isn't saying much because it is January. But it's really incredible to see this many people from all over the country. So we had people ordering kits from Victoria all the way to Prince Edward Island. And there are also participants outside of Canada, I know, that have registered. And this is so incredible to see this actually come to fruition. And I'm so grateful that you guys are all here today. We're going to be kicking off Canadian Whisky Week, which starts today with this masterclass. And Canadian Whisky Week was launched last year with a pretty simple idea that Canadian whiskey deserves its own moment in the spotlight beyond just celebrating it around Canada Day. So, for a long time, Canadian whiskey has been both everywhere, but also at the same time very weirdly misunderstood. And it's one of the most flexible, creative, and diverse whiskey categories in the world, but it rarely gets talked about in a way that actually reflects how complex the the whiskey is from our country. And so Canadian Whisky Week really exists to change that. It's really about celebrating people, places, and producers, and the incredible range of styles that are being made across the country and giving drinkers a better tool to understand what's actually in their glasses. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Reece Sims. I'm the founder of a program called Flavor Camp. I also have Sip Spirits Consulting, where I work with brands, and the Flavour Report magazine, which you guys all got in your kits. And then also founded Canadian Whisky Week last year, and currently act as the chair for Western Canada. So, in addition to myself on sort of the organizational board, we have our Eastern Canada chair, Andrea Fiarchuk, which she's going to be properly introduced a little bit later in the program. And then we also have two honorary chairs. And honestly, we couldn't have asked for better ones. The first one is Davin de Kergommeaux, who is my co-host today, and he probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyways. So, Davin is the world's leading authority on Canadian whiskey, an IACP award-winning writer, and the author of Canadian Whisky, the Essential Portable Expert, which again, you guys all have with you and should definitely read. He's also the founder of the Canadian Whisky Awards, and he's been arguably one of the most important voices in spirits writing for over 25 years. And because of that, in 2024, he was inducted into the Whiskey Hall of Fame in the world and named one of Canada's most influential people in food and drink. So, as I mentioned, he's also co-hosting today. I'm so excited for him to be sharing all of his multi-decade knowledge with us. In addition to him, we also have Alex Hamer, who is one of our honorary chairs, and he's also one of the strongest advocates for Canadian craft spirits. He is the managing director of Canadian Whisky Awards, the founding member, or the founder, sorry, of BC Distilled, Artisan Distillers Canada, and the Canadian Artisan Spirits Competition. And these three platforms have really done an enormous amount to support small scale producers, raise industry standards, and connect distillers and engage drinkers across the country. We also have a number of Canadian Whisky Week liaisons joining us this afternoon who are going to be introducing each of the distilleries that you're going to be tasting today. These are people who've spent years tasting, writing about, and advocating for Canadian whiskey from the media and communication side of the industry. And one of our liaisons is even going to be doing a couple live singing things later on in our program. So that kind of leads me perfectly into how this tasting came together. I reached out to these eight liaisons and gave them what is frankly a really cruel assignment. So each one of them had to nominate just one single distillery to represent Canadian whiskey in this national tasting. So they didn't have an option of a top three. They didn't have an option of a short list. They literally had to choose one distillery only. And these are people that have tasted hundreds of Canadian whiskeys, probably just in the last year alone, or even in the last month alone for those who are our liaisons who are also Canadian Whisky Awards judges. So asking them to pick a single distillery was basically asking them to choose who their favorite child is. So not a very easy feat. But what came out of this process is what you have in front of you this afternoon. It's not a marketing lineup. This is completely unsponsored and organic and naturally nominated. We're also exploring not a single style of Canadian whiskey, not a single region, but this is really truly a snapshot of how diverse, interesting, and genuinely exciting Canadian whiskey is right now. So this afternoon is about tasting across different styles, different philosophies, and across the country, and hopefully walking away with a much clearer sense of how big the Canadian whiskey fabric really is. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Davin to say a few words. And when he's done, I'm going to walk you guys through our Flavor Camp tasting system card that you have in front of you. And then we're going to kick things off and actually start tasting and talking about the whiskey. All right, so
Thank you
take it
very
away.
much, Reece. Thank you very much. I have to tell you, Reece, you're a real inspiration. I don't think I've ever seen a gathering like this, and I don't think I've ever seen like eight whiskeys this wonderful poured together. I started out thinking that single malt Scotch was the only whiskey worth drinking, and I believed that for quite a long time. When I started writing about Canadian whiskey in 2005, largely because it was really inexpensive, and some of it was pretty darn good. There were about three brands that people really knew about. One was Crown Royal, one was Canadian Club, and the other one was 40 Creek. 40 Creek had just burst on the scene, and when you go to a whiskey show, those stands, people would be lonely. They'd be like the Maytag repairman. But I think that what we're doing today, we have like 110 people got kits, and this really shows just how much Canadian whiskey has caught on. And by the time we've tasted these eight today, I think we're going to understand why, because Canadian whiskey is just amazing. Now, again, when I started writing about Canadian whiskey 20 years ago, none of these whiskeys existed except for Lot 40. And Lot 40 is kind of taking the lead on the connoisseur quality Canadian whiskey. And along with 40 Creek, they kind of pulled us into this new age of fantastic Canadian whiskey. So I think that why don't we chat more as we go along? I know we started a couple of minutes late. Let's hear about the flavor camp approach to tasting whiskey.
All right, thanks, Devin. So I swear I'm only going to talk for like 2 more minutes, and then we have 20 different presenters going to be presenting throughout the next 2.5 hours. So I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Flavor Camp in case you're not familiar. I'm really passionate about this program. So in front of you, sorry, you have this card, and I'm just going to explain how to use it and what exactly it is. So Flavor Camp is a flavor first education platform that I've created. And what we do is we really teach people how flavor is built, not just how to describe it. So instead of memorizing regions or brands, we use a simple system that really connects ingredients, process, and production choices to what you actually taste. The goal is really to give people a shared process-led language and better instincts when tasting. And we operate kind of on three main pillars for the way that we run our programs. So we have first the flavor dials, which kind of help predict how things should taste before we even pour it. And these are really going to be explained by our presenters and the distillers today. And then second, in front of you, you have the tasting system. And this is really to classify what you're experiencing in the glass after you've tasted it. And then finally, we have a structured way to evaluate quality and balance, which I'm not going to dive into today, but we might do a poll at the end to see what people's favorites were, or hopefully it's a tie for 8 out of 8. But just because we have limited time, we're not going to dive into how to properly evaluate whiskey in a sensory capacity. So because Flavor Camp is really independent and not tied to a brand or a category, my goal is to really build a universal flavor language that people can use across whiskeys, cocktails, other spirits, and not just for one person's portfolio. This especially matters in Canada because technically there's only one legal category for whiskey. There's the Canadian whiskey, Canadian rye whiskey, and rye whiskey, which are all synonymous under law. And I know Davin has a lot more to say about this, as the rest of the presenters do, But that means essentially that everything from light, delicate blends to heavy oak-driven or rye-forward styles all live under the same category. So the name on the bottle or the description doesn't necessarily tell you how the product is going to taste. And there's no better example of this than the 8 whiskeys that we're going to be tasting throughout this masterclass. So just to explain how to use this, you're not obligated to, but I find it as a very helpful system. This starts by kind of ignoring, again, the type, age, country, price, and instead sorting whiskey by flavor first. So we have 15 flavor camps. Each one acts as an umbrella for a family of perceptible compounds. The reason for the camps is simple. One person's baked apple pie could be another person's cinnamon bun or apple fritter. And so instead of arguing about the semantics of pastries, this really just gives us more broader shared categories to capture what's happening in each of the glasses. So every single whiskey can get their own signature flavor camp taste profile, and that is comprised of one primary flavor camp, which is the dominant flavor profile of the whiskey, and then 1 to 3 secondary camps based on how each of those flavor families kind of show up and the level of intensity that they have in each of the whiskeys. So that profile can essentially become a shorthand way to remember what you've tasted and really allows you to compare whiskeys with similar profiles and talk about flavor with more precision than just saying, oh, I liked it because it's smooth. So it really turns our vague opinions into something that's a little bit more structured, comparable, and useful. And so today we're tasting through these 8 whiskeys. I have about I tried them last night and have like 20 to 30 tasting notes for each. So that's more than 150 tasting notes for the whiskeys that we're trying today. And through the flavor camp tasting system, we're really able to distill them down, pun intended, into just 8 flavor camp simple taste profiles that make them a lot more easy to recall. So I'm going to maybe chime in and talk about what the flavor camp taste profiles I perceive are, but on the back of each of your cards, you can also kind of explore it and do it for yourself as well. So how this is going to work over the next 2 hours is we have our wonderful liaisons or ambassadors to introduce each of the distilleries, and then they're going to have about 5 minutes to talk about their whiskeys and taste them, and we're all going to taste it together. And then we're going to open it up to 3 questions max. So if you have questions for the distilleries, please put them in the chat and we'll sort through them. Because we only have a few minutes, there probably will be more questions than time for each of the distilleries. So I will be sticking around afterwards if there's more questions that need to be asked, but also capturing all of these. And then I will pass them on to each of the distilleries. So hopefully we can get some solid answers for you if you have some more in-depth questions for them, because I know the distillers love to chat. So with that, let's kick off the tasting. Woohoo!
Well, let's kick off with Kurt Bradley he's the founder of the Gentleman's Flavor, and Gentleman's Flavor is one of Canada's foremost resources for Canadian whiskey reviews. Now, Kurt was born in Toronto, but he spent some time in Glasgow, and that's kind of where he developed his passion for whiskey and his understanding for whiskey as well. I see I'm getting this right. Kurt's nodding. So he's a certified whiskey ambassador now. And he regularly contributes also to Cigar Journal magazine. He's collaborated with Okanagan Spirits. We're pouring Okanagan Spirits today. And he's also, they created a cigar whiskey, and he's now considered to be one of Canada's foremost cigar writers, one of Canada's most influential cigar writers. So, Kurt, why don't you tell us about your black bourbon from Okanagan Spirits?
Oh my gosh. Amen. Davin, thank you. Wow. How fun is this? Look at all these faces on here. First, I got to show something off. I know Trenny and C's got Canadian hockey jerseys on. I got a Canadian tuxedo going, right? I got my Canadian tuxedo on today. All right. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Am I okay? Good?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess Davin kind of covered it. I'm Kurt Bradley from the Gentleman's Flavor. I am a Canadian whiskey reviewer, but I review exclusively Canadian whiskey, kind of like you, Davin. I mean, and truth be told, what kind of brought me into this is essentially, I got to admit, I'm a sweet tooth kind of girl. I really like things that hit that kind of confectionery, bakery kind of notes, sweetness. Hey, stop, think about it. Our Canadian whiskeys develop a taste of maple syrup. through Mother Nature. I think it's amazing. And since my profile is so geared towards things that err on a little bit of the sweet side, this is one reason why I fell in love with this whiskey. It's such an honor to be here today with such distinguished company and to celebrate Canadian whiskey and my love for this glorious little cask strength bourbon style whiskey that comes to us from the Okanagan Valley. Of course, we're still living in times of, American whiskey being off the shelves. Now, today, everything's about whiskey love. We're not talking politics. But this has made a big change for Canadian whiskey and, how we view Canadian whiskey and how we get our hands on something that's made with over 51% corn. Now, technically, this whiskey here qualifies as a bourbon, okay? As Tyler's going to tell you soon, this meets all of the liquid qualifications of being a bourbon whiskey. But, of course, it's made in Canada. It does not come from the good old US of A. So we have to call it a bourbon-style whiskey. Now, if you're looking for something that's a replacement for something from Kentucky or Tennessee or any of those states, let me tell you, my friend, you're barking up the wrong tree. This is its own animal. It's a very, very unique product. So this is what I'm presenting on today. Everybody, if you don't have your glass in your hand or you haven't taken your first sip, please do. And I want to welcome you to flight glass number 1. This is Okanagan Spirits Craft Distillery from the Okanagan Valley in beautiful British Columbia. This is the BLK BRBN. Now, this wonderful whiskey, of course, as I said, meets the criteria of being a Canadian bourbon. But what I think is the real show stealer here is the chocolate malted barley. Tyler's going to tell you how this all goes on, but this is the special part for me. And this is why I also say, if you're looking for something that's just to replace your bottle of Jim Beam or Jack Daniels, this is not it. This is its own unique whiskey, and it's this chocolate malted rye. Barley, sorry, there's no rye in this. And do not call this a rye, because a lot of people make the mistake of saying, hey, it's Canadian, right? Davin, you're so used to this. If it's distilled in Canada, it's rye. Some of them even put rye on the bottle when there's no rye in there. It's bonkers, right?
Not
okay,
very
so
often.
no, but it still happens. I mean, my parents' generation, they still all call it rye, right? Okay, so essentially, it's the over roasting of the barley that really packs the finished liquid with chocolate. So, of course, I'm going to invite everybody to pop their nose in there, take a little bit of a whiff. Now, I've spent a lot of time with this whiskey. Now, to me, this nose hits you with honeycomb. It's layers of honeycomb. And what I also get is a little bit of cola. There's vanilla custard in here. And I get a little bit of slightly overburnt popcorn, kind of like when you hit 3 minutes and it's only supposed to be 2.5. That's kind of the nose for me. Now, the palate, first off, cheers, everybody. Let's take a little sip. I'm gonna, welcome. I'm under a time limit here and I'm getting close. I'm going to turn things over to Tyler, who I like to call the mad scientist, very shortly.
You're over time.
Okay, well, you know what? At 52 ABV, this finish really, really, really hangs on. This is not a hazmat, scorch your face kind of whiskey. This whiskey makes love to you. Listen, my sweet spot falls between 48 and 55%. And I'll tell you, this drink's kind of like the high 50s. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to leave you with this before I pass things over to Tyler. Recently, with the Gentleman's Flavor, we did a blind whiskey challenge. We had 7 judges, very experienced whiskey drinkers. We took 14 bourbon whiskeys, 7 of them bourbon style from Canada, and 7 of them true red, white, and blue American bourbons. And this whiskey that's in your glass took number 1. It beat out stuff like Maker's Mark. It beat out stuff like Uncle Nearest, Old Forester, a whole pile of big name bourbon whiskeys. And everybody went for this one. And I think the real reason is it's so unique and it's just such a special whiskey. I'm going to pass things over to Tyler. Of course, I've had the pleasure of working with Okanagan Spirits Craft Distillery. I have made my own cigar whiskey. This was the first one called Midnight Maduro. The third one is coming out soon. But let's find out how this little whiskey came to be from CEO, head of Western Canada's original whiskey family, Tyler Dyke. Tyler, good to see you, buddy.
Hi there. Thanks, Kurt. I assume you guys can hear me. Davin, you can hear everything? Yeah. Thanks very much for that, Kurt. Very kind of you, and really appreciate you nominating us and bringing us on. We do have the privilege or the honor of our of family having been there at the origin of the whiskey and spirits movement in Western Canada. I think sometimes that may be a silly thing. I don't know if it's always the best of things, but when you're, it's so amazing to look out now and see the community of distillers that are across this country. I have the privilege of sitting as the head of the Canadian Craft Distillers Alliance and also the BC Craft Distillers Guild. And just to see that it's grown from, back in the days of us, and then building upon that this community of amazing distillers that are telling stories of their stories, their locality through their whiskey. And that's really what the magic of any region in the world's whiskey. We're talking Canadian now, but to me, it's about authenticity and storyline. And our family is lucky enough to have been in this area for 5 generations. So the whiskeys we make speak of the stories of our history in the valley. We use all local grains. We work with our local agrologists from plant through to harvest, through milling, everything. So we like to make sure that we've got our finger in all aspects, and that we feel that carries through in the story of what our whiskeys tell. Now, the black bourbon, BLK, BRBN, for us, when we first started making BRBN, which is the original version of this, at 40%, it was probably our hardest to make whiskey ever. We had 3 years of crop failures because grain corn wasn't growing in BC at that time, so we had to learn how to grow grain corn. It's probably still our most expensive whiskey to date because of that. You wreck 40 tons of grain 3 years in a row, and you're already behind the 8 ball. But really what ended up happening with this is or I guess if I go back on there, why did we want to make a American style whiskey or a bourbon style whiskey? Well, we don't see it when I look at whiskey, I think these beautiful categories of whiskeys are based on the grain and not really the locality of where they're made. And really, when distilleries around the world use barley or use rye or use corn, what they're really doing is singing a love song to that style of whiskey. And that's how I like to look at whiskey, is a love song or an ode to that. So when people say, oh, you're trying to make a bourbon, and be like, no, I'm trying to make a Dyke family whiskey right here in the Okanagan from our fields. But the bourbon style whiskeys that we make are done in the same manner as if they had been done down there, to give that hat tip to this heritage of one of the world's most beautiful regions of making whiskey. And the style of whiskey that comes from there obviously was using corn. Now, what makes this one different? This one is one of those happy mistakes. And Reece is probably looking and being like, oh my God, this guy's going to go on and talk for 7 hours, which I usually do. And Davin knows this too.
We'll cut you off soon, Tyler.
Exactly. This guy really came about from a really happy mistake in that Gambrinus Malting does all of our toe malting for us. And they were malting a batch of our grain. I got a phone call the next morning for our barley side of the component of the mash bill. And this was decade and a half ago. And they said, oh, we just wrecked 30 tons of your barley off your fields there. It like chocolate malted this thing. We had something go wrong in the malting house. We're going to send it over. Don't worry about it. Just if you can use it, you can use it. And we decided to try making it. Of course, yields were really down. You malt higher, you get less yields. But even right off the still, we got this beautiful malted note that was coming through, and this chocolatey essence in the white dog. And we thought, this could be a winner. Now, of course, I had to go to bed for 5, and this one 7.5 years in virgin white oak casks. But as that develops, you get this much more bold presentation, and it stands up to the higher ABV. So really, I would say that this is a an ode to a beautiful style of whiskey, being bourbon styles of whiskey. It's a happy mistake, one that we repeat every year now when we over malt our grains, because we're not going to let this guy go. And in fact, we've gone into over malting our rye as well, and working on wheat as well, to try to work on these different high malted categories to see if we can develop more notes in the whiskey as well. So thank you very much, and really appreciate being here, and hopefully you enjoy that whiskey.
Thanks so much, guys. Do we have any questions for Tyler in the chat? Davin, do you have any commentary?
No, I really love this whiskey, and the chocolate malt it just works beautifully in a bourbon style whiskey.
Yeah, we found that, sometimes some of your mistakes in production end up being some of the spirits that you love most. And this one, we never would have malted it to that high, because it was already way too expensive of a whiskey for production and losing 3 years of crops. But going to this high malt really allowed us to experiment, and that's where, because we custom malt our grains through toe malting at Gambrinus. And so we play on different malt levels on all different releases, and whether it's rye or barley that we're working with. And it just is another lever to pull to change the profile down the line.
Yeah, this is one area where Canada and North America generally is a real leader with malted barley. We do things the Scots never would have even thought about. And beer malts and toasted malts are one of it. And you've shown us a way to use this so that's not even single malt.
So good.
And it's a super fun way to do it. And I think that there's a lot of playfulness in Canadian whiskey. It's a new, like, look at us, like, yeah. We're only 23 years old going on now, and to be like one of the old, like in Western Canada, to be the oldest, it's kind of ridiculous. But there is this wonderful playfulness that comes with working with other distillers all across and brewers across Canada, because we can think outside the box a bit. And so, like, we use only virgin white oak casks for all of our whiskeys. And we do a lot of double wood profiles and triple wood profiles as well. But there's just so many different fun play things that you can break some of those rules that are like, no, tradition says this. It's like, what if you did this? What if you made a hop? You made a beer mash and you finished it off and did a beer schnapps. And so we've got a whole line of those. It's a wonderful world of playfulness. And for all those guys out here that are just here to enjoy and learn, and to all the other distillers, it's just such a privilege to be a distiller in this time where we've got people that are celebrating locality and what's unique about the stories you tell. And I think the next 20 to 30 years in Canadian whiskey are going to be the Renaissance movement for our country, and the taste profiles that we're all going to be able to enjoy are going to be magical. So I'm glad to be along for the ride, and I feel honored to be invited to be amongst this panel and these other distillers that are here today that are going to blow your socks off, because they are fantastic.
Amazing. Thanks, Tyler. We have a few questions. Again, I'm sorry, we're already behind time, but I knew this was going to happen. So I have a few questions in the chat for you. First one is just to clarify, were all of the grains mashed together, or were they distilled and aged separately?
No, so these guys are done in the mash, like in our mash tun, lauter tun. And so we do it proportionally for each batch there by weight, of course, and then go into the mash tun with the grain mash bill that we're looking for.
Okay.
And they're grain off ferment. So we'll be using a mash lauter tun. It's, that part of the process, and then grain off ferments. Double distillation in, we use German flavor copper pot stills.
Amazing. Was this always planned to be a cask strength or higher ABV bottling, or how did you decide on the ABV?
No, I think they're like I look at all of our different whiskeys, and especially now that we've got this private proof club lineup for our private whiskey geeks and connoisseurs. It's nice to let the whiskey decide where it comes out. And on this one, just what ended up happening, we were originally thinking, oh, this will be a nice chocolate version of chocolate, but an authentic chocolate version of the BRBN. And maybe it's going to be down at 40% to 44, in something that more the general public will like. But then when we're doing a taste panel at it and cutting it down, and we just found that the sweet spot, and you've noticed our vintage has changed. We've been at 54%, we've been at 52. So it changes depending on what that vintage tells us it balances out best at. And for this, 52 seemed to be the balance that we really liked for this presentation.
Something I love is
Sweet
that when
spot.
there's varying ABVs, it's like almost like a collector item in that each subsequent release is going to be slightly different, and being a little bit more agile as a craft distillery. I know you guys do a lot of production. It allows you to kind of do what's best for the whiskey, not just have to follow brand guidelines, so to speak.
Yeah, and you know what? It is wonderful to be able to, again, it sounds cheesy to say tell your story through, but it is those differences and the uniqueness. And let's be clear, the days of homogenized whiskey, like if you want the same thing to taste the same all the time, there are big distilleries that do that, and that's fine. That's like the Starbucks model or the McDonald's model. That's great, and they're always going to dominate for sure. But things that change over time, a whiskey that does not change over time, that's not a real whiskey. Like it, because we're dealing with fermentable material from different harvest seasons, different terroir, different maturation cycles. So I tell people when they say, "Oh, your black bourbon this year tastes different than last year," it's like, thank you for noticing. Like, and if it doesn't, if it ever tastes the same, call bullshit. Because there's no way a fermentable, you cannot reproduce nature. You get different times for like the growing cycle is different, heat units are different. I'm going to pass it on to the next presenter because I know you guys are going to something, but this is what I'm so excited about the renaissance of whiskey in Canada, is that people are going to experience all of we have 390 craft distilleries across Canada now that are giving these beautiful presentations that are always going to be shifting, and we should demand that they do, because if you had the same Pinot Noir every year and it tasted the same, it's manufactured. It can't possibly happen from the same winery. And nor should a whiskey. Never should taste the same. It should have probably unique trends or something that's unique to that distillery, but it should flux and change.
Mom Nature calls the shots.
Nature always calls the shots, and you try to call the shots back on it, and you get spanked. So
That's right.
All right. Thanks so much, Kurt and Tyler. And yeah, if anybody has more questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. And again, I know we're a little bit behind, but fortunately, our next liaison does not need an introduction because it is me. So I'm going to be introducing our second whiskey that we are trying. Hi, Andy. And so my nominated distillery is Sons of Vancouver, and they've always been built on an idea that you don't want to make things that already exist in the marketplace. You want to look for gaps, for opportunities, and they've really done a good job at doing that with enthusiasm, with intelligence, and a lot of creative chaos. They really have this uncanny ability to spot what's missing in the market and then actually go build and create it, often in ways that nobody really expects. So if we think about some of their non-whiskey products, like whoever thought that consumers would want an artisan barrel-aged amaretto or a 40% ABV blue curacao, or like, why have triple sec when you can have a quadruple sec? So they have really innovated in our industry, across like in the craft industry. And this is why I wanted to feature one of their products today. Also, on a personal note, so before I started in this industry, I actually used to work in marketing and communications and architecture, and had sort of a quarter life crisis where I hated sitting in an office all day. And long story short, I started bartending in 2015. And that was the same year that Sons of Vancouver opened. So somehow I don't even quite remember, but I met James Lester, who is one of the founders. And While I was a baby bartender, he was definitely not shy in telling me what I was doing wrong and telling me how to be a better bartender and how to compete. And we also just vibed on talking about whiskey, and he had all these ambitious ideas of what he wanted his distillery to become. And as somebody who's also like such a dreamer in this industry, that really resonated with me. So flash forward 10 years or 11 years, I guess now to today. And it's been so incredible to see Sons of Vancouver evolve their vision, just going from vision to execution to excellence. Their innovative mindset has been like well recognized in the last number of years, especially at the Canadian Whisky Awards. They've won Canadian Whisky of the Year for Palm Trees and Tropical Breeze, which came out in 2023. They've also taken home multiple Best in Class awards for the Realms of Rye series and continue to impress judges with what they're able to produce at their distillery. If you want to find out more, I know that you have the Flavour Report Edition 2 that I sent out to you, but in Edition 1, which you can watch online or read online, sorry, for free, Charlene Rook has done an incredible job spotlighting Sons of Vancouver in an article. So, anyways, with all that being said, I'm really happy to hand it over to Andy, who is one of their whiskey makers and the brand manager for Sons of Vancouver, to talk about their flagship wheated rye that has been released and we're tasting.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Sorry. Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, nods, yeah, thumbs up and nods, great. Yeah, no, just check. Thank you for having us. Like Reece, Davin, everyone. Like I really love um, the work that you guys are doing. Sons of Vancouver, especially. Thank you so much for nominating us. We feel very privileged to be part of what, in my opinion, is an incredibly important piece of work to bolster and champion Canadian whiskey. Yeah, I'm Andy. I'm one of the whiskey makers at Sons of Vancouver. I've been working under the owners, Jenna Giaboldo and James Lester. Our distillery manager is Stuart Walker. Yes, there are two Scottish people working at Sons of Vancouver. We're learning a huge amount about rye whiskey in our time. Yeah, Sons of Vancouver, I think Reece said quite a lot of wonderful things. You've actually known the brand a lot longer than I have. But Sons of Vancouver have always tried to, what I've learned from the owners is that they've always tried to not look for gaps in the industry, but they actually just try and want to make whiskey that they want to drink. And I think that's a really, as whiskey makers, we really pride ourselves on thinking about what we want to drink, who we want to drink it with, the occasion. And that's why our numbered releases, like Palm Trees and the Tropical Breeze, these all come from bursts of inspiration that can come from anywhere. I know we don't have a lot of time, and I can waffle on for a long time, but we're a rye whiskey distillery. We love exploring the flavors of rye. We think it's an extremely underdeveloped whiskey category, especially in the Canadian whiskey market. We think that there is so much still to be explored and demonstrated in rye whiskey. If you look at the breadth of Scotch in Scotland, Canada is so much bigger than Scotland, so much bigger, so sorry, Jenna's trying to call me right now. I don't know why she's doing that, but Jenna, leave me alone. If you're watching, stop calling. You're messing up my video. But yeah, I'm really excited to be part of what seems like, I think Tyler mentioned earlier, this is a really exciting time to be in the Canadian whiskey industry. There's so much yet to be explored, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to like show and experiment and really dive into rye and the full extent of rye. We're not focused on age statements. We're not focused on a number. We're not focused on following the norms. We have an idea, and we try and explore that to the fullest extent that we can. I want to check that my camera's frozen on my side. Can everyone else see me okay?
Yeah, I think
Thumbs
so.
up, heads. Okay, great. Yeah, so we're West Coast rye focused distillery. We have 3 ranges. We came up with our mainstay earlier this year, which we're very proud of. And it's the first time we managed to bring a mainstay or a signature whiskey blend to the market. We've always had our numbered releases are all very conceptual, but we haven't been around that long. And if we could release 1,000 bottles of every numbered release, I guarantee you we would. Unfortunately, it's still coming to age. So we are releasing as much whiskey as we possibly can. But with so your number 2 sample that you have at the moment is our wheated rye that we brought to the market. And we're very proud of it, very excited about it. 25% wheat, 75% rye. And that's both in the mash bill and the blend. So it's a mixed mash bill. We mash with wheat flour and rye flour. We work with a local BC farmer, Egbert Shooter, and his wife Rosa. They're very wonderful people. He makes fantastic rye. It's very nice having that connection with your grain source. It's another thing that's sort of lost in other places, but I think the craft industry here means that you have to do that. And it's another reason why making whiskey in Canada and BC specifically is so special, because those sort of rules and laws around what it means to be a craft distiller, they kind of don't exist in other parts of the world, and it kind of forces you to have this connection with a grain supplier or whatever spirit you're trying to make. So yeah, our wheated rye, we're trying to like ease people into rye. Like we believe rye is the best grain to make whiskey from. That is our belief, and our job and all the whiskeys we release are designed to try and convince everyone of the same. I know that sounds like blasphemy coming from a Scottish guy, but I believe, and I think you should believe too, that rye is a wonderful, wonderful grain to make whiskey from. So our wheated rye, yeah. What we've explored with rye, numbered releases aside, realms of rye releases aside, we really wanted to show that rye has this full depth of baking spice, soft vanilla, there's fruit in there. We really we use a French saison yeast that really bolsters tropical notes. With our rye, once aged between 3 and 5 years, turns into this beautiful apricot stone fruit note that develops over cask maturation for a long time. And then we introduce a portion of wheat, 25% wheat, and that just gave it like a little soft sweetness. Wheat is vanilla in our minds. Rye is kind of known for being intense baking spice, like very clove, very anise heavy. And I think we just kind of, with our signature blend, we wanted to demonstrate that that's not what it is. So yeah, we're very, very proud of what we're doing. We're very proud to be exploring rye the way that we do. Our numbered releases kind of take that down a more experimental route. We kind of try and explore all the different nuances of rye and how that can be affected through cask maturation. There's various finishes on those. There's we stay true to what we believe whiskey should be. There's no additives, there's no coloring, there's no flavoring. So Ooey Gooey Sticky Cinnamon Bun, our last whiskey release, does not have cinnamon or sugar added to it. All of those flavors are demonstrated through cask maturation, through the fermentation, through the distillation, and cask finishing. So yeah, I'm aware we have a short period of time, but the wheated rye that you have in your glass now, I hope you will have it with you. You're swirling, you're sipping. Yeah, initially on the nose, very light tropical esters. You should get like sweet icing sugar. And then as you get further into the glass, those sort of lower level esters along the liquid are cinnamon, clove. I get a low level, very, very soft, sort of like green banana note. And then that wheat just brings in a big vanilla bomb when you taste it. And most of our releases are cask strength. And wheated rye, we came in at 50.6%, 50.9%. And we just felt like we choose ABV based on how flavors express themselves, and we felt like that was the perfect level for what we're trying to put through the wheat rye. So yeah, it's the first, and I'm going to tease a little bit. We may have another Wednesday coming later this year. I didn't tell you. Sorry, I'm just going to. So yeah, that's just it. Wheated rye, we're very proud of it, very happy with it. We have our numbered releases. We have our realms of rye, which explores more rye at its core. So there's no exploration of cask finishing in that range. We're really looking at the pure raw grain and how that can be expressed. So citrus and botanicals is the first realms of rye release. Cacao and dark fruits was the second. The third was evergreen. So we're looking at citrus, orange, dark fruits, red fruits, and then green, evergreen, grass, herbal notes. All of these flavors are being pulled purely from the fermentation and distillation, and very rudimentary maturation, like where there's no finishing cask in it. So the Realms of Rye series explores, there's a bit more of a scientific, techie look into rye grain and how it can be used and how it can explore flavors. Our numbered releases are more spontaneous bursts of inspiration. Sometimes Jenna will walk by a dash hunt in a puddle and she's like, I wonder what that puppy would like to drink. And we try and make a whiskey that will taste like that. Whiskey should be fun and it should be exciting. And I've really, really enjoyed everything that I've learned at St. Vancouver. As a Scottish distiller, I find the Canadian whiskey landscape so freeing, and so it's just so at the start of this thing. And the way, as Reece said, she was lucky enough to be bartending in 2015 when the distillery started. It's rare to be at the start of a distillery. That's a really rare, special thing. I've worked with whiskey distilleries in the past that are 200 years old. Can you imagine being at the start of that distillery being made? What a fantastic and like privilege it feels to be at the start of what I consider Sons of Vancouver being a huge, huge player in the Canadian whiskey landscape for many, many, many years to come. And I think the vision that James and Jenna have is so clear and so direct. And I really, really, truly believe in it. And I'm very privileged to be part of it.
All right. Thanks, Andy. We have a few questions for you. Also, are you able to go into your lounge? It's just so loud in the background.
Oh, okay. Let me go into my little lounge. I apologize. Sorry, I'm in a co-working space. Okay, let me see. Does this work? That's
Amazing.
quieter, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I love that my camera's frozen, so I don't know what I look like, but
you look great. 10 out of 10.
Nice.
Okay, we have a few questions in the chat about the production of your whiskeys. So for the rye, what species are you using currently for like varietal?
Yeah, so we're using hard winter rye. Varietal, I need to double check on that. Apologies off the top of my head. But our farmer, Egbert Schuer, is based in Invermere. Localized rye. We used to get from. It's an interesting thing. When I moved here and started making whiskey, the first thing I asked at the craft distillery I worked at was, "Where's our like spec sheet on the grain?" We need to know potential extracts. I want to know like protein content. I want to know fat, like premium and nitrogen. I want to know all of these things. And it kind of just didn't exist. Like we were getting the same grain as like bakeries.
Mm-hmm.
We're making like neutral spirit from wheat or rye whiskey from the same rye that Cobbs would be making bread from, and we had no information on it. And in my time at Sons, it's moved from, I think that's just to do with the age of the industry, the infrastructure for grain. We used to get from a much bigger base of grain. SPG was our supply before, which is kind of like a hub where multiple farmers feed into the one place that then acts as a wholesale distribution. And so working with a single farmer individually it's really changed. It's kind of slightly changed our, I don't want to say it's changed our house style too much, but being able to work directly with a farmer, directly with him and his land, someone growing rye in a way that like we can see him, that is visible. Each batch isn't a mix of multiple different farms. Like if there's any quality issues, we can go straight to him. Yeah, I know I kind of talked around the answer to this question right now, but what I will say is, yeah, we work directly with Egbert and Schuer Farms. Would highly recommend if anyone else is in BC and is looking to get into rye or wheat. Yeah.
Amazing. Are you malting any of the rye that's used in any of your whiskeys?
No.
All malted?
No malted.
And then Teresa is wondering about the fermentation period. I know that for this one you're using like French Saison yeast, right? You said
Correct.
that's going to
Yeah.
pull out a lot more like estery notes to it. But how long are you fermenting typically for?
We ferment we do a primary fermentation that is 3 days. Yeah, 3 days, and then we actually double pitch yeast. So we start with the French saison. Our mash bill is a 3-to-1 grain to water ratio. So we're about we have a 6,000 liter mash kettle. We mash with a wheat rye flour. So it's a solid state fermentation, on grain fermentation, very almost like a bourbon style of making whiskey. We don't lauter, we don't mash them. So we ferment on the grain. We pitch French saison. Once we mash, we actually have a period of souring. So we leave the mash overnight for 24 hours, just as like a partial souring of the mash, and then we'll pitch WLP 590, which is a Belgian, not a French saison. We use a liquid culture. We ferment on that for 3 days at about 28 degrees Celsius, like slightly higher. It's got a nice like low and slow is always what I was taught for flavor development, but each to their own. We tend to get these, yeah, exactly what you said, those like light fruit, tropical notes with the French saison for about 2 or 3 days. 3 days. It's not 2 or 3, it's 3. And then we double pitch a EC 1118, so like a champagne yeast later on, just to try and mop up as much alcohol as we possibly can. So in the first 2 days, we started tracking this every 3 times a day actually recently. We've got a new SOP. It's going really well. So we produce about 600 LEA, which is liters of absolute alcohol for people watching. That's about how much pure ethanol you can produce during a fermentation. We're looking for close to 600 over the course of the whole fermentation. Over the first 48 hours, we will produce 400 of that. And the last 200 is over another 4 days. So it's almost like a week-long fermentation.
Okay.
Over half is made in the first 2 days, and that's where most of our flavors are.
Amazing. Davin, do you have anything to note?
Well, I just like to say that, in my master's, I studied grain science, and rye is grown to make bread. There's not enough market for whiskey rye. But I think there are people who have been growing rye for whiskey for at least 3 generations in Alberta. And the reason that people are going to hybrid rye now is because it makes better bread. The bubbles are much smaller. It all ferments at about the same rate. But you guys are doing fabulous things with your rye. You really are. I'm honestly, I've poured 2 of those realms of rye, and it's like 2 different whiskeys all together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. That means a huge amount. Thank
It's
you.
fabulous stuff. You've got a good team, really good.
Yay. Okay. So again, we're a little bit behind time here. So I'm sorry, Andy. We're gonna, again, if you have questions, I guess one last question was, do you have any hints as to the next Realm of Rye release and what we're targeting, or you can't tell us?
I can't tell you the next rounds of rye. I can't tell you the next numbered release, but I will say Wheated Rye may have a brother later this year.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. Thank you so much, Andy, for chatting. And I guess we will move on to our next whiskey.
Okay, well, can I take it, Reece?
Yeah,
Yeah, because the next whiskey we're tasting is lot number 40 dark oak, and I remember when I got my first bottle of this, it was brand new, and I opened it up and poured a dram, took a sip, and it blew me away. And I telephoned their PR people and said, "This is the best whiskey I've tasted in years. It was my whiskey of the year that year," and I could go on and on and on, but Professor Andrea Fujarchuk is going to tell us about this. Andrea is a professor, and she's the program coordinator also at Niagara College. She's soon going to be Dr. Fujarchuk. So right now I'm going to call you Andrea, and I'll show respect later when you finally get that doctorate in business administration. She's got over a decade of experience in spirits production, sales education, media. Andrea and I talk on the phone all the time. She's somebody who's really going to be somebody, and I'm really happy about that. So she's currently working on this DBA at Harriet Watt. She's got a BSc in environmental science. She's looking at the values and the role of country of origin in the Canadian whiskey market. Boy, I'm telling you, Andrea, I guess the environment has sure changed for you in the last year. She's going to be presenting some of her findings at the 2026 Beam Institute Industry Conference. That's a prestigious invitation. And she's also one of the only 30 people who Discus are supporting underwriting this year with their Discus Distilled Spirits Academy. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Andrea, but I'm very enthusiastic about your whiskey.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Davin. That was a very, very complimentary introduction. I'm very thrilled with that, actually. Kind of takes me off guard. And thank you, Reece, for letting me pick a whiskey today. And similar to Davin, when I first tried this, I was blown away. It's actually probably one of the first Canadian whiskeys that, in particular, the Ryes, that I was like, this is everything that I love about Canadian rye whiskey. And throughout my travels, I used to live in London and I travel a lot to the States for work and whatnot. But a lot of people always make this assumption that a lot of Canadian rye whiskeys are bland, or they're not bold, or they're not flavorful. And the thing that I love about this Canadian rye whiskey is that it is bold, it is flavorful, it is readily available, and it quickly has become the global standard, the flagship for Canadian rye whiskey. It's won Best Canadian Rye Whiskey at the World Whiskey Awards, Best Canadian Rye Whiskey at the Canadian Whisky Awards too. And it is awesome by itself, and it is epic in a cocktail. So for me, it ticks all the boxes. I love the dark oak on it. I love the char that comes to it, the marshmallow flavor profile. And to me, it's just incredibly satisfying and it's a warm hug. And there are these chocolate notes that, to be honest with you, I couldn't really want much more out of a Canadian rye whiskey. So I love the fact that when I travel, I can recommend this to almost anybody and they can find it. So I actually have the honor of introducing the global brand ambassador for Lot 40. And not only the global brand ambassador, he's recently won in 2024 at Tales of the Cocktail, which is like the Oscars for the bar scene, best global brand ambassador. He is a superstar, he is a rock star, and he is often the face of Canadian whiskey worldwide. And I am such a big fan of the ABCs of Canadian whiskey, which Dave Mitten is taking the lead and educating people worldwide on what Canadian whiskey is. So without further ado, I've got my bottle here because obviously I always have a few on hand. Thank you very much, Dave, and I will hand it over to you.
Wow, thank you, Andrea. Quite an introduction. And thanks for picking this whiskey. Thanks for having me, Reece and Davin. I am setting my timer, Reece, right now. 5 minutes. Let's see what we can do. But yeah, I've been in this role for almost 12 years now. It was supposed to be a one-year contract, and I just fell in love with the challenge of trying to teach people around the world and enlighten them on the category of Canadian whiskey. Thankfully, I've had people like Davin at my side all these years helping me out, and our master blender, Dr. Don Livermore, and master distiller, Amy Levesque, at our Hiram Walker Distillery in Windsor. And I am kind of here because of Lot 40. Before this, I used to own and operate bars and restaurants and worked in the cocktail world. And my first experience with Lot 40, when it was re-released in 2012, I will say the original recipe I didn't get to try until very recently. It was released in 1998. I know Davin would remember that. And it was from our previous master blender, Michael Booth, who at the time, Canadian whiskey was corn whiskey that was double, triple, even quadruple column distilled. All the flavor taken out of the corn that was generally used with a little pinch of rye. And he invented Lot 40, which was 100% rye whiskey, to bring out to the world. And at a time, this is when I started bartending, when drinks were in glasses shaped like this. They were neon colored, fruity, juicy, vodka ruled. What do you think happened when we released 100% rye whiskey in the late 90s? Not much.
People didn't like it.
Nope. You're gonna think back. The bourbon trend hadn't hit yet. Irish whiskey. People didn't know what Irish whiskey was in North America. Japanese whiskey wasn't a thing. It just didn't work. Fast forward, bartenders bring out old cocktail books in London and New York and reviving Manhattans, martinis, old fashions. Bourbon explodes around the world. Irish whiskey explodes around the world. Japanese whiskey. Someone at our company thought, what if we took that 100% rye that didn't work so well a decade ago and bring it back? Well, this is when our now current master blender, Dr. Don Livermore, started out. And he does have a PhD and dissertation in what wood does to spirits. So he changed the recipe up a little bit. Lot 40 being 100% unmalted rye and column pot distilled aged in new oak. Did so well with the bar community, whiskey aficionados, that we started putting out cask strengths. We started putting out barrel finishes, just having some fun with it. And in 2020, we released Lot 40 Dark Oak in the month of March. Anyone remember what happened in 2020 in the month of March?
I drank a lot of dark oak.
The world shut down. So for a whiskey that is generally bought up by whiskey aficionados and bars, it was not a good time to release it. Thankfully, as Andrea mentioned, the next year we won World's Best Rye at the World Whiskey Awards, which is pretty crazy. And the company decided to keep making this offshoot into a regular product. And here we are today. We should probably try some of this, shouldn't we? I mean, looking at it right away, you get that like roasted pecans or pecans, depending where you are. On the nose, I get almost a tobacco, or somebody said it's like a oolong tea, which I totally agree with. Black pepper, toasted cumin, certainly that sourdough rye, warming honey, vanilla, and lots of oak. Now, this whiskey is made very similar to Lot 40. It's 100% rye, unmalted. Dr. Don likes using those exogenous enzymes at the distillery. Fermented for 60 hours, up to an 8% ABV. And then it's one column distilled after that to 70% ABV. And after that, we take it and we distill it in an 8-liter pot still for 12 hours, bringing that up to 80% ABV, and then put it into the barrels at 58% ABV. Before I go on, let's try a little sip. I mean, this is complex. It's big, it's rounded, it's bold. All the words we use when we're describing rye. I love this. Obviously, I'm getting that heavy rye spice. You're getting the sourdough rye. I'm getting a little white pepper, the clove, touches of walnut. What I really get from this that's different from the original Lot 40, where it's a little drier, I get certainly vanilla, but it's almost like a vanilla ice cream and cinnamon to this. And that's me. Like it's got a sweetness to it. Now, just about done. We're at the 5-minute mark. Now, after we put it into the new American Oak, char number 2, we re-gauge it in char number 4. This is where it starts becoming very different from the original Lot 40. And that char number 4 is where you're getting that sweet vanilla, the cinnamon from. And original Lot 40 is bottled at 43 ABV, which is a little bit higher from your traditional Canadian whiskeys, but Dark Oak is bottled at 48 ABV. So when it comes to making classic cocktails like an old fashioned or a vieux carré, this is one of the better whiskeys you're going to find in shelves across Canada that you can make an old fashioned with. And that's from somebody who's making cocktails for the last 30 years. That's kind of it. This is Lot 40. It's simple. It's rye in its purest form.
Canadian rye at its purest form.
Yeah.
You know, Dave, every time we get together, I always tell you how the original Lot 40 from 1990, I prefer that to all of the others. And this whiskey really showed me that Lot 40, today's Lot 40 is pretty fabulous. Now, I've learned over the years that the old days were always the best, whether you're talking about football or whatever. And so the next time I tell you that, could you stop me and remind me about Lot 40 Dark Oak? Because this Lot 40 is truly a fabulous whiskey.
And I'll tell you what, and maybe this is something you and Reece and I and Andrew and we all talk about later for a future event, but I don't know if I've told you this, because there's just no bottles of the original Lot 40 left anywhere. Not really. And I was working overseas and I found 3 bottles in a wine store in Rome. So I do have some of the originals and tasting it side by side. It's pretty wild.
Well, that would be fabulous. Fabulous.
So
Absolutely
let's
fabulous.
talk
Yeah, when are we coming to your house?
on over.
Okay.
Amazing. Do we have any questions in the chat? Pretty much all the chatter around this whiskey is how amazing it is and delicious. Teresa says she likes the char 4, adds a lot of dimension, and likes that it wasn't proof too low because it is bottled at 48% ABV. Dustin's wondering if you're using the 111 rule for this whiskey, but it's 100% rye, so no, correct.
We have all of our brands, like JP Weiser's Gooder Hemmenworth's Pike Creek Lot 40, JP Weiser's 15. We take advantage of the 9.09 rule, and there's less than half a percent of a sherry blended into it. But the rest of them, barrel finishing, because it's actually cheaper to barrel finish than to add the 9.09, is what Dr. Don usually tells us. So no 9.09 on this, 100% unmalted rye.
And Dr. Don is pro caramel coloring and chill filtering, correct? Just for consistency purposes?
Consistency, you won't see him use caramel coloring in any one-offs. So for instance, our rye explorations, like we just released the Oloroso, the cherry, he won't add coloring if it's something that's only coming out once. It's kind of his rule.
Okay. Is this one though, is this chill filtered even though it's 48%? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, he chill filters everything right now. The JP Weiser's red letter, like when I started 10 years ago, that was unchill filtered. Davin would remember that. But even the red letter today is chill filtered. And I'll be really honest, because you guys know me, I am. I don't think anyone on this call would have any issues with it, but the unfiltered, the unchill filtered, we'd get the calls from people. Something's in my whiskey. There's a little something, and you'd have people asking. So it just became more of a headache to not.
Yeah. I know that he also had tested this like with your sensory panel and just done a side-by-side tasting of filtered versus non-chill filtered of the same product, and your panel was in general not able to differentiate. So it just kind of validated his theory.
Yeah, I had to put stuff away.
Absolutely.
Where the truck would have been.
Oh,
What do they need to get
somebody's
in
mic
there?
is off.
I also want to plug Blending 101 for anyone who has not done that yet. It's the opportunity to go to Hiram Walker and actually blend with Dr. Don in Windsor.
Okay,
And
so this is
it was probably it's been one of the highlight of my entire whiskey experiences because there are over 100 different samples and you get to make your own whiskey and actually get feedback from Dr. Don on the spot. Reece and I got to do that last summer, and there's a bunch of different openings this year. I don't know when they are, but if you ever get the chance, do head out there.
It's a pretty special experience. And I mean, you can spend a night or two in Windsor, and if you're more into the music and art scene of Detroit, it's a quick little jump across the river in a car. So you can make a little vacation out of it too if you want to go do it.
All right. That's so funny. I put that in the chat too, Andrea. I was like, it was my favorite thing I did last year. Okay. So thank you so much, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for talking about Lot 40 Dark Oak. Similar sentiments to Davin and Andrea. When I first tried it, when it came out in 2020, I literally bought like a 6-pack of it for COVID and crushed through it. And in fact, I had an extra bottle, and my partner drank the entire thing over the past 2 weeks and had to replace it for a tasting. I'm using it in tomorrow for bartenders. So it's definitely a staple in our household.
Love it. I'll see the rest of this. Thanks for including me today, and I'll see you in Victoria in a few days.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, so let's move on to our fourth whiskey, and then we are going to do an intermission and have some music to bring us back. So, I am so excited to introduce Sean. Sean's known to many in the whiskey community as Dark Cloud. And he's been on a personal whiskey journey since early adulthood with a more focused and dedicated pursuit beginning in 2018. So that deeper dive was really sparked by a bucket list trip of a lifetime to Scotland and Ireland that he actually won through a local radio contest. I want to know more about that also, Sean. And so through visiting places like Glengoyne Distillery and Bushmills, this really became a catalyst for him building a love for whiskey in general, but also he is hugely passionate about Canadian whiskey as well and has done some collaborations with some distilleries such as Hanson in Edmonton in recent years. So in short, Sean has become a very active and engaged member of the whiskey community. He quite literally posts a whiskey review every single day. I can't remember how many days he's done it now for, but it's like hundreds upon hundreds of days. He also has written for the Whiskey Explorer magazine and also launched this in the past couple of months a brand new podcast called the Last Call Whiskey Podcast, where him and Tyler and Jeremy kind of do these unfiltered, so to speak, whiskey chats about different topics that are pertinent and happening now. So, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sean to introduce our next distillery.
Can I interject for just 1 second?
Mhm.
And that previous whiskey was absolutely lovely, but super intense, and the rye spice lingers, as does the double oak on the palate. And if anybody is about to start into our whiskey, before you do, maybe if you have a glass of water or something, maybe cleanse the palate
Don't you need a glass
before.
of organic whole milk?
Yes, or milk. Milk is actually really good for this as well.
All right, Sean, take it away.
That's all.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was quite an introduction. I'm very, very honored and privileged to be part of this. Um, Obviously the whiskey community across Canada is tight knit. Reps from around the world comment on it every time they come here that it's just an amazing place for whiskey. And as this today is showing, it's awesome. So, Anoka Distillery may not be a familiar name like some of these other distilleries. Why is that? Well, they just released their first ever legal whiskey less than a month ago. So, yes, they are brand new. Why did I pick these, Gurpreet and Anoka? Well, to me, they're leading the future of Canadian whiskey. We've talked a lot about rye. We've talked a lot about the history. What you have in your glass today is something completely different, and that is also why I picked them. They, as far as I know, make the most heavily peated whiskey in Canada. They also make non-peated whiskey with barley grown from the farm that the distillery is situated on. They are winning awards already. They won world's best or Canada's best London dry gin for their gin. That was their first product they released. And they have won the world's best new make in the entire world at the World Whiskey Awards. Fun fact, the whiskey that we are drinking is made from that new make, so that's pretty cool. And then the personal story is, I just post every day on social media, very active in chat groups and YouTube and everything, podcast. And I get a message about 5-ish years ago from a name I did not recognize and just said, "Hey, you're into whiskey. We're building a distillery kind of close to you. What do you think?" Okay, sweet. First, I didn't believe it. I was like, "Yeah, right, whatever. Building a distillery, sure." And then about a year later, the foundations were in and the structures were starting to go up, and I got invited out. And for the first time, I met Gurpreet, and we've been tight friends since then. The distillery's 12 minutes from my door. I've timed it. One of the advantages of that is I get called at all hours of the day and night, and whether I'm at work or not,
You're welcome.
and said, "Hey, what are you doing right now? You should come check out the stuff we literally is coming off the stills right now." Or, "Hey, meet me in your driveway in 5 minutes, and I have something very cool." So, yeah, literally from the ground up, I've loved these guys, everything they're doing. I'm at work. I legally cannot drink half my life. That's where I am right now. I'm literally in a jail cell or camp room. So I don't have the whiskeys, But what I will is I'll give you the information on the whiskey, and then Gurpreet will run you through kind of more of the history and the tasting notes for this. So this was whiskey. It's not actually legal whiskey. So that's the first surprise. The stuff that's still in the barrel will be legal on February 8th. So it's just shy of the 3-year mark. It's about roughly 48%. And this is a custom blend that the two of us kind of whipped together one day at the distillery specifically for this event. Originated in 5 barrels, 2 were quarter casks that held peated malt from Hill Rock Estates, 3 full-size ex-bourbon American oak from Woodinville. The quarter cask had severe angel share, so there was about only 20% in the barrels, and that stuff makes up 20% of the entire blend. ABV was proofed down to 50.1% and then re-racked into sherry casks. So what this is made of, all 3 sherry casks were from Casnolia in the legacy range of their casks, so it's the highest grade that you can get. It's 60% from an American Oak PX cask, 30% from American Oak Oloroso cask, and another 10% from another American Oak PX cask. The first 2 casks were completely dry when Gurpreet got them in, and the one with the 10%, it was wet in terms of it had about 200 mils of the PX in it that Gurpreet was able to try and said it tastes more like port than it did PX. So that's very cool. This is peated whiskey, 75.2 ppm. So that's definitely on the high end. If you think Islay Scotch, most of them are 35 to 50 ppm. So yeah, this is something I'm very excited about. Anoka's released through the years the This Is Not Whiskey range, just to kind of showcase as it was going through from new make all the way up. The progress report was their first legal whiskey. Again, it's just a progress report of where it is on the ongoing range. And he phoned me last night while I was at work, and we discussed future releases, bottle sizes, and kind of what the masses would like and what makes sense. So, if you're ever in Edmonton and you want to make a short 20-minute drive, I will meet you at Anoka, and we will go through and just talk to this gentleman here who has become a good friend and making what I feel is probably the best future whiskey in Canada. All right, take it away.
Hey guys, Gurpreet here. I'm sitting in our still house. I'm actually distilling right now as we speak. I've got gin on the go in the background. This is Anoka Distillery. This isn't whiskey. It'll be whiskey in like about a month, but we bottled this back in December, so it was about 34 months old. So our first, I think, non-progress report actual whiskey release will be coming out probably this summer. I think there's a couple of things that make us a little bit unique here in Canada. I think the biggest thing is that we're direct fired copper pot stills, both for the wash stills. So that's a wash still right here, and spirit still here behind me. Everything is direct fired, so wash and spirit. And we kind of had a sense that this was going to make something magical, because before we started, I may or may not have set up a fairly large craft distillery in my dad's backyard, and ended up winning, got the highest score in the world at the International Wine and Spirits competition on spirit that we made in my dad's backyard. And so we knew that, like, having this direct fired system on wash and spirit was going to be something that would be key to the success of this distillery. And the reason we set up the distillery in my dad's backyard prior to this opening was that prior to this, I practiced law, and my wife wouldn't let me quit my job until I proved to her that I was actually able to make a decent whiskey. So when we took the highest score in the world at the IWSC off stuff that I made in my dad's backyard, I think that was enough. And so that's what we've been doing. And the reason we're out here in the middle of a farm is we really wanted to showcase, what Canada and what Alberta in particular can bring to the table. I mean, we grow 3 times as much barley as Scotland. The province of Alberta grows more barley than any country in the Western Hemisphere. like the only country that comes close is Argentina. We grow 25% more than Argentina, and we have this, we have this tremendous resource like right under our feet. And what do we do with it? We feed it to cattle, we feed it to swine, and we don't use it. We don't value add to it here in the province, and that broke my heart. And that was kind of the inspiration behind starting the distillery. So we're on our own farm. We have 110 acres. We grow our own barley. And as Tyler spoke to earlier, farming sucks, as I've learned. And so the first year we grew barley, it was a drought year. And so we had really terrible barley. It wasn't malt quality, but I found a local craft maltster to malt it for us anyways. We turned that into whiskey. We'll see how that turns out. But our yield was very, very low. We grew barley again in 2024, and then we lost the entire crop because the farmer, my neighbor who harvests the grain for us, his bins got infested with bugs, and so we had to get rid of it all. So we're going to try growing barley again next year, and the goal is, eventually we'll have a standard whiskey that comes from barley that we grow here on the farm. But as I'm learning, farming sucks, and it's incredibly challenging. And so that'll be kind of like every year is going to taste different because we're going to have different amount of rain, a different amount of sunshine. Growing season is going to be different, different protein levels in the grain. So we're going to be feeding the yeast different nutrients, and so they're going to produce different flavors. And that's I think going to be really, really interesting. And I think the coolest thing about this distillery is that like when we started, and we knew that we wanted to go direct fired, we had this idea that we would be able to buy these commercial systems from Foresights or other distilleries, or sorry, other producers. And as soon as we went to go order this equipment, we found out that nobody would ship to us, and that's because we're in Canada. We have the CSA, and you can't buy, sell, import anything that burns gas into Canada unless it's CSA approved. And so here we are. We're sitting. We're sitting here. We've started construction on the distillery, and we can't get a commercial burner. And so then it occurred to me, well, where do we live? We live in Alberta. And guess what we're really good at doing here in Alberta? Burning gas in dangerous places. And so when oil comes out of the ground, what comes with it? It's methane. And so we have this company in the south of the province that designed this super efficient flare stack burners. And it was in the middle of COVID, and I guess they were bored. I called them up and said, hey, is there any chance you guys could take one of your flare stack burners and repurpose it to help me make whiskey? And as soon as I said whiskey, they said 100% we're in. And so each one of the burners underneath each one of these stills is actually just a flare stack burner from an oil and gas company here in Alberta. It's about the Alberta solution we could find to the problem. But it was CSA approved, right? And so the stills are all handmade in Portugal because the Canadian still manufacturers wanted no part of this direct fired project because of how dangerous it is. And so the stills are handmade in Portugal. So each one of the little dimples on the stills is from an old man with a hammer, hammering away. It took him about a year to build the 3 stills up top. So we have 2 wash stills at 1,000 liters, a spirit still at 1,000 liters, and we are producing about 1.5 barrels a day right now off that system. We use a mash filter for our mashing, so we get super high gravity brews. So we're trying to do our part. We don't use any wastewater in our distillation for the whiskey. Like we actually use the fact that Alberta's cold. It's minus 20 here for a large chunk of the year. And so we use the outside ambient air to cool our water for our condensers so that we don't use any groundwater for that. And so we probably save, several 100,000 liters of water every year. And, we're trying to do things right. So the mash filter in that same vein reduces our water consumption by about 30%, as well as our energy consumption. We do a super high gravity brew. So we're at like a 1080 for the geeks out there that know what that means. And so we're making basically a wash that's sitting at around 10, 11%. And that's critical to a lot of the flavors that we're creating, a huge amount of Maillard reactions. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen. Now, the sample that's in your glass is not a whiskey that exists because it was literally like I pulled some barrel samples and Sean and I kind of tasted through them and decided what he wanted to do. This isn't actually my favorite whiskey in the warehouse. And What I would do is I would release the stuff that's been aged exclusively in ex bourbon, so that you can taste the spirit character more fully. And it really is kind of shocking what's happened here. We have a dunnage warehouse that sits at the average humidity in it is 82%. Now that dunnage warehouse didn't exist at the beginning because we started off aging everything up in our brew house. And if anybody knows Alberta, you know that my hands are cracked and dry because it's bone dry in Alberta all year long. But we were losing about 1% a month out of the barrels. So at 20 months, we had lost 20% of our whiskey in this. And I was like, this is not acceptable. And we tried to humidify the building and our grain started to rot. So we had to find a solution. And so we found a part of our farm where there's this underground river running underneath. And we knew that because our barley was always a foot taller there. And in the drought year, the barley, that was the only part of the farm where the barley looked healthy. What we did is we built a dunnage warehouse on top of it. And so that allows that moisture that's in the ground to kind of come up through the clay and humidify the building. And so it's a little bit like Black Fox, except with a giant black shed over top of it, and allowing that moisture to kind of seep into the building. And what that's done is it's really improved our maturation quite a lot, and I'm really excited. But it also means that we have a 20-degree temperature swing every single day. And I think somewhere close to I think about a 70-degree temperature swing throughout the year and 20 degrees every single day. And so that's why this whiskey is only 35 months, or 34 months when we bottled it. And I'm biased, of course, but I feel like it tastes significantly more mature than its age would suggest.
Correct.
Happy to answer any questions. Or did I do that? Is that enough time? Am I good?
Yeah, you're perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a few questions. One is, were the stills built by Iberian Copper Alembic?
No, those guys, their copper gauge is really thin. So we ended up going to a place called Copper Brothers, and they use a heavier gauge copper that they import from Germany. And so I wanted my still to last a while. So
Amazing. Can you talk a bit about the peat source for this expression? And then also, someone was asking if it's easy to source PX and Oloroso casks.
no, it's hard. The biggest challenge is like being in Western Canada means, for sourcing the casks, you gotta get it on a lorry in Spain, get it out to a port, then go across the ocean, then get it on a train in Montreal, and then send it across the second largest landmass in the world. And so yeah, it's a pain. Right, winter is the right time to get those casks. In the summer, they might go off. But yeah, and you also want to know about the barley. So this malt was sourced from Simpsons. So our goal is eventually, once we actually have a decent crop here where our barley makes malt, is actually to make a peated Alberta whiskey. Because on our farm, we have 20 acres of our own peat. So if you guys know anything about Alberta, basically from Edmonton north is some of the richest peat reserves in the world. But we have tremendously more peat than we have more barley, we have more peat, we have everything we need, right? We have more barley than 3 times as much barley as Scotland, more barley than peat than anywhere in the world except Russia. And so we have this tremendous amount of peat, including the 20 acres that we have on a farm. And so our goal is one day to make our own peated malt, but I first need to grow, get a decent crop off the field. I'm hoping next year we're able to pull that off. So this stuff that's in the glass is from Simpsons. And it was, I think the source of their peat is it's a Highland peat from Scotland. So you get a little bit of the heather kind of notes in there. It's the same supplier as Caboken or Bowmore, but this is at 75.2 ppm. I'm really excited. We've got on its way, probably landing in the Port of Montreal in the next few days, another container of peated malt coming from Simpsons, and it's sitting at 135 ppm. And that'll be landing here on January 22nd, and I'm excited to vacuum that out of the container at -20.
Amazing. Davin, have you had a chance to try any non-whiskey whiskeys from them yet?
I've tried quite a bit of whiskey or proto whiskey from Anoka, and it's I'm very, very enthusiastic about that distillery. They make really beautifully subtle malts, and but they also have a certain boldness of them. I'm really very enthusiastic. I'm not at all surprised they've been named the best malt spirit in the world at the World Whiskey Awards. It's just I don't know what Gurpreet does. Now, I was in Edmonton a few
Lots
months
of dumb
ago.
things.
In the middle of the night, we're driving around in his truck talking about whiskey, and yeah, I'm very pleased. Everything is. I love this whiskey that you just made, Gurpreet. It's unfortunate that it'll never come again, but I know that being Gurpreet Ranu, you've got something better up your sleeve.
We will.
I can't wait. Yeah, it's been an incredible job. I've had the fortune of hanging out at your distillery for a few hours, which is really cool. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the releases finally come to fruition because, like you said, well, even just trying your distillate was unbelievable. The peated, or this is not whiskey, like peated distillate is so good just by itself. So I can't wait for another decade to pass and just see how these evolve over time.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that. Okay. This category should be called proto whiskey, says somebody in the chat. All right, amazing. So I think looking at the schedule, we are going to do a little brief intermission for about 10 minutes. Again, apologies. I know we are behind schedule, which I think was anticipated, but we're going to give everybody like a 10-minute bathroom break and resume with some beautiful melodies from the Whiskey Hunter, Chris, to kick us off in the second half of this tasting. So if everybody wants to take a little break, go stretch your legs, drink some water, and also go to the washroom if you need to, or eat some food, please feel free. And we will resume back at, I'm going to give everybody actually a few less minutes, but 2:45 PST, 3:45 MST, or whatever time zone I'm in, or wait, what? I
Would that
can't
be
add.
5:45 Eastern?
5:45 your time, Davin. EST, okay? So everybody gets like 7 minutes. So we'll see you back in a few. All right, everyone, we are going to get slowly back into action in part 2 of the whiskey tasting. Kurt, muting. Oh, hey. Yeah, I'm so excited. So while we are easing back in, I'm really excited to present Chris Gormley. Did I say that right? I'm so sorry if I didn't. Who is also known as the Whiskey Hunter. And in addition, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself after, but he has some incredible whiskey themed songs that he has produced on that you can find on Spotify. I know Davin is a huge fan. He uses Chris's music a lot of times for his Instagram post background music. And we connected thanks to Kurt. Yes, because
Whiskey Hunter.
yes, in addition to being just not only a whiskey fan, Chris also has some amazing collaboration bottles with Oak Spirits, which was the first distillery that we talked about. So I'm going to let Chris take it away and give us some live jams here.
Yeah. Well, sorry
Thanks,
for the
Bobby.
delay. I'll just get right to the song then. Yes, I write whiskey-inspired music. I started out as a whiskey reviewer, but I started doing the whiskey music at the same time, and now I'm just like, I drink a lot of whiskey. I drink myself, I drink with friends, and I get inspired by it, get inspired by the stories behind the bottles, get inspired by speaking to people that make whiskey, and I write songs about whiskey. So, and when I started doing this, I always dreamed that I would have an audience one day, a big audience of whiskey drinkers to share my songs with. And now look what happened. Look what Reece and Davin had done. There's hundreds of people drinking whiskey together. So this is a song called Pour Myself a Whiskey. Sorry, sorry, take my glasses off. I'ma pour myself a whiskey to celebrate this day. Man, these times are crazy. Forget about my worry as I'm fighting back these tears. The only word I'll say is cheers. I'ma pour myself a whiskey. Think of what I've done. I had some bad times, I had some fun. Well, I ain't in a hurry, I'ma sit here till I'm through and pour another whiskey for you. Oh yeah. I'ma pour myself a whiskey and make a brand new plan. If you drink whiskey, you'll understand. There ain't nothing that could stop me with this bottle in my hand. Oh, whiskey, I love you, man. Oh, yeah. So raise a glass for happiness, raise a glass for fear, raise a glass for anyone who can't be here. Raise a glass for yesterday, raise a glass for love, raise a glass for all the whiskey angels up above. I'ma pour myself a whiskey to celebrate this day. Man, these times are crazy. Forget about my worry as I'm fighting back these tears. The only word I'll say is cheers. Yeah, the only word I'll say is cheers. Yeah, the only word I'll say is cheers.
Yay!
Thanks, everyone.
Give the
Cheers,
clap.
everybody.
Chat. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Reece.
I feel like I would wet my pants if I had to perform live music. But luckily, you can only see this much of the screen, so it would be fine. So Chris is going to come back after our next half of the tastings and lead us out of our tasting session, which I'm really excited about with song number 2. But yeah, let's get back into tasting some whiskeys. So I'm gonna do a little introduction to our next whiskey liaison, my friend Teresa. And so Teresa's journey into whiskey kind of began in an unlikely way. She is born and raised in Alberta, and she didn't really care much for beer or wine, but discovered through cocktails and highballs that her true home was in spirits and specifically in whiskey. So what started as a curiosity became a passion, and soon a whole new world opened up for her. So over these years, she's met quite a few of our favorite friends from abroad, the Jacks, the Jims, the Glens of the world. She's visited distilleries and found herself on a new path entirely. And as an enthusiast and self-professed geek, she also has studied whiskey pretty extensively. She's one of, if not the only Canadian, I think, that actually has her whiskey sommelier certification. She is also a whiskey ambassador independently and works with quite a few different craft distilleries and has a fantastic Canadian whiskey specific Instagram account where she features a lot of Canadian whiskey on it, which is why she's called Teresa, the Canadian whiskey smith. And with that, she continues to work with sort of as a brand ambassador at a lot of the shows locally here in Alberta, growing the craft distilling industry, and is really passionate about sharing or shedding a light on some of the smaller distilleries here in Alberta and the rest of Canada that are doing really big things. So with that, that is the perfect cue into Teresa to talk about our Alberta-based distillery that is next.
Just doing a mic check. Everybody can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, yes, I'm a whiskey sommelier. I did that program through the Whiskey Vault, if people are familiar with the Whiskey Marketing School online, that is the program I did. I am not the only Canadian sommelier, but I am one of the few level 4s, which is the top of the program. So it's been a fun journey. And part of that journey, you know, as much as I'm the Canadian whiskey smith, I'm Canadian and I'm whiskey and my last name is Smith, so it all kind of goes together. But I don't know, when I was thinking about what brings me into it, smithies care about craft. Smithies are experts. If you think about who you go to make things and to craft things, it's the smithies. And that has really drawn me into what has been happening in Canada across the board with everybody who is crafting out there. So, I mean, huge thanks to everybody that we've seen so far, because I'm familiar with a lot of these products already, and it's great to see what they're doing. To that end, Bridgeland Distillery is one of our local favorites. And when Reece was asking me what did I want to do, I'm like, well, there's so many out there doing amazing things, but Bridgeland has really grown in my heart. And we've got Jacques here. He's one of the founders of the distillery, and I'll be turning it over to him shortly. But they, instead of doing young spirits where they were focusing on vodka and gin, like a lot of places, they actually dove into fruit spirits. Daniel is Italian, Jacques is French. There's some wine background there. And so they looked at what could they do differently. And then as they started to work through whiskey as well, they came up with this idea that they wanted to do a port finished whiskey. But port casks are expensive. And the thing is, though, you can't make port outside of Portugal, if I understand that correctly. So they created their own, and they called it Porta Rosa because they can't call it port, but it's a fortified wine that's done in the port style. And they made this originally, well, I've got vintage 2023, so that they could get a barrel. And then last year being 2024, because we're so new into 26 here, they came out with this bottle here, and it was probably one of my favorite releases that they have ever done. It's one of my favorite whiskey releases to come out of Alberta. It is one that I shared alongside the port the Porta Rosa at the Whiskey Marketing School, because they wanted people to be able to taste. They wanted the sommeliers to taste the finishing liquid alongside what it actually does to the spirit. And it was one of the things that actually converted some friends of mine who were like, what can't Canadian whiskey, it's all the same, or it's all this, or it's all that. And it's like, no, this is different. And then when we were getting ready for this, I asked Reece, I'm like, well, does it have to be a core release, or can it be something different? Because I knew that release number 2 was on its way. And she's like, no, you can share whatever you want. So got a little of the Porta Rosa. I've got a little of our sample, and I'm going to turn it over to Jacques to tell you about what they are doing and why they are doing it.
All right. Thanks, Teresa. Thank you so much. Thanks, Reece and Davin, for putting this fabulous program this afternoon. I think it's exciting to see the level of energy we see in the Canadian whiskey industry nowadays. So we're so glad to be part of it. We're downtown Calgary, so we're an urban distillery. Daniel Plenzik and myself started the distillery 7 years ago now. And it was basically started or built on the concept of merging innovation, tradition, and terroir, explicitly showcasing the Alberta terroir. So for us, that was important that people would be tasting Alberta when they taste our whiskey. Single malt is sometimes viewed as the holy grail of whiskey when it comes to whiskey category. This was a dream of mine to do one day a single malt, so that's why it's in our portfolio. We took that concept of single malt to the extreme. There's, as you know, it's typically coming from a single distillery, but we get our grain from a single farm, the Hamill Farm in Penhold, Alberta, And all the grain that we're using for our single malt comes from a single field, specifically NE4-3727W4M. So that's the basically Township 37, Range 27, and it's the northeast quarter section of Section 4. So that's exactly where the grain's coming from. Eventually, the field will change, but for the last 4 releases, it's coming from that field in particular. The Hamill are great farmers. They know how to approach farming in central Alberta. They're also expert at malting, craft malting, basically. So we're blessed to have access to their knowledge and be able to use their grain. We make brandy as well. So that's the two, basically the two prong of our distillery. We make brandy and we make whiskey. So we wanted to showcase as well a release that would feature both sides. So as you know, brandy is made from wine. So one day we ask ourselves, could we make a fortified wine so we can condition barrel to make our own fortified wine? And we released the bottle that Teresa was showcasing was our first release of the port, the 2023. Then we did another release in 2024. There's more port to be aging, or Porta Rosa to be aging right now. So that's going to bode well for future releases. But basically, out of this, in 2024, late 2024, we basically harvested our port and put some single malt in it, and that's what we're tasting right now. It's our second release. Last year, it won the best barrel finish at the Canadian Whisky Awards, a prize that we're quite proud of it. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the geeky note because I know this is the audience for it. It's basically been fermentation are typically 6-7 days, so long fermentation. Distilled twice in a pot still, a beautiful pot still named Louise. I'm going to show it. Hopefully we can show it, maybe not, but it's our beautiful pot still with this coil at the top, creating beautiful results. Distilled twice. The first time we distilled to about 35%. It's pot still. Second time we hit about 72% as a batch, and then we proof it down to about 60%. We put it in barrel. When in barrel, basically an ISC barrel single malt is aged 3.5 year in that barrel. It's a Cooper's Reserve, so the best in their line of barrels, and then it's basically finished for 10 months in that Porta Rosa barrel. And on the nose, if you're nosing it, tasting it, lots of roasted grain comes through. Of course, there's that red wine port greeting your nostril basically initially, but then coffee ground, roasted grain, that's what our single malt program is all about at this point. In a nutshell, yeah, that's our 2025 Glenbow whiskey, and we're just getting started. We've got more and more of those releases down the line, but hopefully you can be part of the experience. You can order online through our online store, so you can also and Teresa's showing a picture of our production room there. To the right is our pot still, our fermenters, and our mash tun. You can order online if you're not in Alberta, and be part of the joy of tasting that whiskey.
I'll just add in there quickly. I think Bridgeland also has one of my favorite tours and favorite tour guides. So if you do have a chance to go and see that still in person, I mean, all the staff are fantastic, but if you can get a tour with Bill, he's just so much fun.
Also one of your favorite bartenders too.
Yes, Irina. Oh my goodness, she is fantastic. She just a great palette for trying to see what goes together. And I mean, great spirits stand on their own, but I love it when you can elevate a cocktail experience by elevating your ingredients because better beans, better coffee, better liquid, better cocktails. And Bridgeland is showing that over and over again. They always have great mixologists.
Thank you.
We have a question for you, JT. Where do the grapes for your Porta Rosa come from?
Yeah, they're Tempranillo grapes coming from California. Every year, that's typically the wine that we make for brandy comes from California and also from the Okanagan. We have it pressed at the vineyards because they do a great job, and we get it in totes refrigerated, and within 24 hours it gets here, and we start fermentation. For port, we get the grapes, the full fruit from California, and we do the pressing ourselves, and that's a fun little afternoon there, and yeah, we get it from California.
Them. Another question is for your single field selections, how do you decide on which field to select from or that it
Yeah,
should be
that's a good
single field?
question. Yeah. Basically, it's almost more like a selection from the Hamill from Red Shed Malting guys. Every year they always select their best field. They don't necessarily release barley that, like for instance, Matt is online. He could correct me, but I think there was a harvest that was really, really good back in 2019 or 2020 or 2018, and there was a lot of that grain that comes from that harvest. So that's why we're tied to that lot for the time being, because that harvest was spectacular.
Yeah, you bet. One of the perks of being a very small maltster is when we have a really good year on the farm, we can stash away multiple years of barley. Thankfully, 2025 was also a phenomenal year, so we're going to stash away a lot of barley, wheat, rye, and oats from this harvest as well. But yeah, other things that go into the selection is just making sure that the protein levels are where we want it, that the free amino nitrogen's on point, um, that nice plump kernels, so that you get nice consistent performance out of it.
Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good point. Matt from Red Shed Malting and Hamill Farms. So we're a small malt house, central Alberta. We've been going for 11 years now. Really started with the focus on breweries, trying to make more beer styles possible out of only Canadian ingredients, but have over the last few years, and especially being tied to Bridgeline here, moved into some of the distillery market, and now we're really trying to find ways to help distilleries in Canada, whether that's coming up with new products, or our role in the barley industry, coming out with varieties that are better suited for whiskey production.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll add a plug there for Red Shed as well. I've had a chance to tour their facility a couple of times. They've grown even just in the last 5 years. It's been great to see. So I know that you do a lot of industry experiences. You work with the Olds program as well to do things for the brewmasters. So if you ever get a chance to go and visit a maltster, it's a fascinating insight into that world. So follow Red Shed on Instagram. They've got some really great behind the scenes if you're ever curious about that side of the business, if you want to get really geeky.
Yeah, speaking of geeky, I have it on good authority that Matt's going to be posting some good geeky grain content for Canadian Whisky Week this week.
You know it.
Yeah.
All right. Davin, do you have any commentary on Bridgeland?
Well, I'm really curious about your Gewürztraminer brandy. Did you make the wine?
Yeah, we did the wine. The grapes come from the Okanagan, and we make the wine from scratch, and we distill it into a beautiful, very dark brandy.
Is it spicy?
It is like, you know what, it drinks like a good dark rum. So from
Good
that point
dark
of view,
rum, the
there's
lychees and things.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've loved everything that I've tasted from your distillery, and if Teresa recommends it, then I will recommend it too. I always love sitting in a tasting with you, Teresa, because I know you're going to ask a good question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. And again, if you have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I will pass them on to JT. So let's move on to our sixth whiskey. Davin, do you want to talk a little bit about Elliot? Have you had a chance to meet him,
I
actually?
haven't I
Or
haven't met Elliot, no, but I know that he's a whiskey enthusiast and content creator from Ontario, and he goes by the name of Single Malt Mac, and uh, he's got a passion for whiskey, but he's also really good at networking. And I got some notes here from Reece. So he's working with dozens of brands and social media promotion, tasting events, bottle release collaborations, and he's really become an influencer in the industry. I know that Teresa's going to roll a little bit of film, but before she does that, Don DeMonte, honest to goodness, Last Straw Distillery always surprises me with how fabulous their whiskeys are, because they do something great and then they do something even better. They love salvaging little, end lots of grain, weird grain like Argentinian rice, stuff like that. These guys are amazing. Do not miss the opportunity to taste a whiskey from Last Straw.
You're way too kind, Davin. You're way too
Well, people who I criticize don't say that. And I have.
All right, so before we have Dawn chat with us about our next whiskey, Elliot unfortunately had to work at this exact time. So he kindly sent me a video of him introducing Dawn and Last Straw Distillery. I apologize in advance if this doesn't work. I've never shared a screen on Zoom. I know that's ridiculous, but we're gonna give it a go. So here we go, hopefully. Hopefully there's nothing incriminating on my computer right now that's open. Okay. How do I do this? Okay. Can you guys see Elliot?
Yep.
Looking good.
Awesome.
All right, hey everyone. Hope you're enjoying the tasting so far. I'm really disappointed I wasn't able to be there live to be a part of this, but Reece has put together something really special here. I think it's really cool that we're showcasing all these different distilleries from across Canada. So the one that I kind of chose to highlight was Last Straw Distillery. Some of you may or may not have tried the single malt that Don and I put together. We took a Canadian wine barrel from Two Sisters Vineyards here in Ontario, a Cab Franc barrel, and then we filled it with Don's single malt, and the result was this beauty right here. So it was my first ever cask pick, and I was really pleased to do it with Don and his team. Last Straw is a family-run, family-operated distillery. Their story is really cool and really interesting. I'll let Don kind of share a bit more about that, as I'm sure he will. And the whiskey that Don's chosen to highlight is the stout whiskey, which has got some really good reviews this year. I don't think it's the first time that he's done it, but it's really unique. And that's one of the things that I like the most about Last Straw Distillery is that Don and the team, Brandon, they're not afraid to try something new. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But they've kind of experimented with different grains, and they had the multi-grain whiskey that they put out earlier this year, and they had a rice and rye that they did, stout whiskey, this really cool single malt that we use, the Canadian wine barrel, which if you haven't tried it, it's gone, but it's unlike any other single malt that I've had anyways. And that's what is my favorite part of Last Straw, is that they experiment, they try different things. So Last Straw, if you don't know, is from Concord, Ontario. They've got some big things happening though, some relocating and different things like that. But they're still going to have the store in Concord, which is basically Vaughan, Ontario. And it's really cool that the whiskeys that come out of that small little distillery are what they are. And if you haven't tried anything, make sure you grab something from Last Straw. Don makes an incredible rye, but yeah, all of his whiskeys that I've had so far are really unique, really interesting, and really good. So over to Don, and I guess back to Reece first. But I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of the tasting, and I hope you've enjoyed it so far. I know there's some really cool and unique whiskeys, and I can't wait to rewatch this, try them all with the video afterwards. So cheers, everyone. Single malt Mac, Elliot McCormack, and again, my pick was Last Straw Distillery. Cheers. All right, hey everyone. Hope you're enjoying the tasting so far.
All right, crushed it, Elliot. All right, take it away, Don.
Yeah, thanks to Elliot. Unfortunately, he's a firefighter, which I think everybody should know. So he's on call and he can't be doing the show, I'm assuming. It's been a fun journey. This is incredible. I remember Elliot came to me about this and said, "Hey, Don, I'd like to promote your stout in this event." And at first, I didn't fully understand it. And now that I'm seeing it, this is incredible. And to be following Bridgeland, if I could visit one distillery in the world again, it would be Bridgeland. Jack and Daniel are incredible. What they do is phenomenal. I was in Calgary a couple of years back at Whiskey Calgary with Dolph Shaw. Actually, we were there and we visited Bridgeland twice. I visited twice. Dolph was with us once, and that's an incredible distillery. And I'm so big now on Canadian whiskeys from these distilleries. I've now got 2 grandsons, and on their birth year, I buy them a whiskey from a Canadian craft distiller. And on their birthday, I buy them another one. So there's some Laird of Fintries, some True Brewers, and Shelter Points, and even some Last Straw in their portfolios now. So I'm hoping when they're 21, they can look back on this history of small Canadian distilleries, the whiskeys they make. And I'm very proud of the stout whiskey that Elliot promoted. It's funny listening to Tyler talk about what they were doing with that bourbon. It's very similar to the stout that we used a toasted malt in this. And it was actually an accident from a brewery that made a stout, tried to barrel age it, and it didn't go well. And they were going to throw it out. And I said, no, give it to me. I'll distill it. And we made our first stout spirit, we called it. And then from there, it was so good, we just carried on. We do the same treatment that they're doing, whereas it's a single malt off the grain. So we need a brewer with a lauter tun to actually create the mash. And then we ferment it, distill it twice, and put it in new American oak. And that's our stout whiskey. We're very proud of it.
Great, Don. Do you want to talk a little bit about the tasting notes that you get from it?
I get a ton of chocolate from it, like very chocolate, a little bit of coffee. It's basically, to me, it's like getting a really good craft stout beer and condensing it into just a hyper stout note.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite whiskeys that we make. The rice was great, Davin. I agree. The rice was awesome. Yeah. And we've done more rice, but we've changed it up. We did a jasmine, finishing in a Chardonnay barrel. So that'll be coming down the road one day.
Okay. I feel like white wine cask finished whiskeys are not very popular.
They're not. That's why I want to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing different things. I like doing unique things. And ultimately, when we pull the barrel, we'll decide if it's good. If it's not, we'll try a different treatment. And that's part of what we do. But
that's like a testament to craft distilleries, is that you have the agility to test a lot of different things, right?
Well, and that's just it. Like I was talking to someone today, they were asking me about the bourbon thing where there's no more bourbon in Ontario. They're not going to bring it in. And how is that affecting you? And how is Canadian whiskey versus bourbon? And I said, well, Canadian whiskey today is so eclectic. It's so different. We can go any way we want, any barrel treatment, any proof, any grain, any finish we want. And it's just Canadian whiskey. That's why it's incredible. I'm glad to be part of this at this time. And in fact, I'm going to use today to announce the fact that we've actually increased production. We've installed a 7,000 liter pot still in Beatty's distillery in Alliston, Ontario, because Ken Beatty gave us the opportunity to work with him and bring our still in there. And ironically, the only person that knows this right now is Kevin from Spirit for Us. I don't know if you know who Kevin is. We actually work with Kevin. He's independent bottler through us, but he was up there. He's the first person to know. And I said, just don't tell anyone. I want to get it out without we're increasing to that level. And we have a 7,000 liter pot still built in Canada by Specific Mechanical, and it's called Big Mike. And we've run corn through it, and we're running rye through it right now.
Love it. A Canadian Whiskey Week exclusive.
Yes.
I'll have to, I think Sean unfortunately had to work also. He's like a shift worker, but they like to talk a lot about what's happening in Canada in the news.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to connect with him for his next podcast episode.
Absolutely.
All right.
We have questions?
I'm just looking through the chat. Actually, I don't think we have a lot of questions. It's more just how delicious this is and how some people are not beer people, but they really like this whiskey.
It does cross over a lot. We get that. I've actually had people say, I hate stout, but I love this whiskey.
There is a question. What type of yeast do you use to make this?
For this one, I use a Lallemand malt whiskey yeast.
Mm-hmm.
Just very, very standard yeast for malt. I generally stick with Lallemand. For other whiskeys, I use grain whiskey. Like if I'm doing a corn, I'm doing a rye, I use a standard grain whiskey. When I'm working with rums, I'll use like champagne whiskeys. I prefer using on those, but this is a malt whiskey yeast that I use on this one.
Okay. Another question is, what is it like working in the Vaughan area? I've always been interested in the distilling industry in that region.
Vaughan is a pain in the butt. The government here is pro-business until you're doing something that freaks them out a little bit. So part of the reason why we're actually moving some production out is to be able to increase, because I don't think it would be a great increase in Vaughan. They're very pro-business, but distilleries run into issues, and we've started to run into that here as we expand.
Wow. With an answer like that, you should be running for Parliament.
If I was, I'd be dropping the excise tax immediately. I'd be killing the interprovincial barriers. I'd make it so we could get everything across the country. That's what we need to have happen in this country.
Boy, well said.
It's like, I don't think we have enough time to get into that.
No, we don't. Well, one other thing I like to say, Matt Redshed, I will be getting some malt from you guys. I'm working on a project. I've been dying to work with Matt for 3 years now, and it's just never happened. So I will definitely be working with Matt. I love what they're doing.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Don, for sharing this delicious whiskey with us.
And thank you for what you're doing. This is awesome. And I'm so honored to be part of this.
Our pleasure. It's all thanks to Elliot, who couldn't be here, but I know he's going to watch the recording of this. We'll post it on YouTube for everybody to rewatch over and over again for eternity. Okay, so let's move on to our next liaisons, plural. So excited. Hi, guys.
Trenny and C.
Trenny and C. Oh.
Trenny and C. Honestly, these guys are just amazing. I don't know two guys who can remain so enthusiastic and so positive for so long. They really represent Canadian whiskey well. They're the creators of the most watched independent whiskey media platforms on YouTube and Twitter, X, whatever they call that, TikTok, and so on. YouTube, wherever. They do monthly live streams with distillers and brand ambassadors, and they're really just a wonderful, exciting, interesting program. They're always, exploring how whiskey's made, aged, finished. They try to keep it accessible and informative. I remember talking to them once, and they said they'd been watching these various videos and people and everybody was so serious, and they thought they enjoyed whiskey and they thought it was fun. They wanted to make it fun. Well, they've grown steadily for the last 7 years. They now have 25,000 followers. That's more than me by 24,993. And they have more than 250,000 views monthly. They have over 400,000 views on some of their TikToks. And in 2024, I was very proud to present them with an award from the Canadian Whisky Awards for the best whiskey broadcast, podcast, or video series, and that was not limited to just Canadian entrants. So these guys are fabulous, and they're going to talk about a whiskey that, well, I think that this is Canada's secret lowland Scotch distillery. I met Steve Lee before he was a distiller, and I've never stopped liking this guy. Have with it, guys. Have at it.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to another live stream episode of Trenny and C. I'm Trenny. This is C.
Hello.
We're really, really happy to be here. Thank you, Reece and Davin, for having us and putting on this incredible historic event for Canadian whiskey. This is really, really cool.
And you know that old saying, save the best for second last.
Yeah.
So here we are. We've got the Douglas. It's our favorite whiskey that we can't pronounce.
Yeah, we've heard it's actually Douglas.
Yeah.
But anyways, and Davin, we noticed you didn't introduce us by talking about our education or anything. So that's fair. That's totally fair. But yeah, we're really excited to talk about the Douglas because when we kind of first came about it, we were given some cask samples, and it was always like one of those whiskeys in the middle of our sessions that we'd taste and go, "Oh my God, this is really
Grant
good."
Opened the jacket and handed us some cask samples a few times, and so we were sipping away on them, and they just kept getting better and better every time that we tried them. And then I think it was last year that you gave us the Solitary Coast, and boy, did we have some moments with the Solitary Coast.
We really did. It sat with us for a while before we popped it open, and we popped it open this summer, and it quickly became, which is, as you guys know, one of the biggest award ceremonies out there is the Trenny and C Awards, and it won the Trenny and C Awards Best Whiskey of the Year this year. So very, very esteemed award.
And so that is why we decided to nominate Douglas Distillery as the distillery that we wanted to show off tonight, because it just blew our minds when we first tried it. And so let's do the white glove unboxing of today's whiskey.
Okay, actually, you go ahead with this.
It's so good actually that it requires the white gloves. You have to get these on to handle the bottle. So I know you all have samples, and that's okay. You can handle those with your regular hands, but this one particularly, it has to be white gloved to get it out of the box here. If you can even do that.
If we can do that, yeah. There we go.
There it is. There it is in the box itself. The peatnik, we'll show that off. There we go. It's a beauty. Grant, do you have your gloves on, or are you just barehanding that? That's crazy.
Yeah, totally got my gloves on.
Okay, good. Keep your hands out of the picture here. I'll pour it for you, Trini. And then,
nice pour.
Just before we get into that,
we did have some moments this year with the whiskey, and we've done some videos and some photos and different things. Let's pull up some of the photos that we have.
We have some very artistic photos, and we're gonna try screen share. And you know what, Reece said that you never kind of know what you're gonna get into when you screen share. So we're going to try and find our artistic photos. See if we can find that. Is that, oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. I don't think that was, sorry, we have,
That's
sorry,
embarrassing.
we've been playing around with Photoshop. Sorry, these aren't the photos. We're going to stop sharing. I guess we don't have any photos.
Never mind.
Let's
Forget
just
it.
roll it over to Grant.
Grant, you can tell us a little bit about this actual whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, the photographer sent me some extra photos from that shoot, and
Sorry about that.
outstanding. I mean, probably not appropriate to show on this presentation, but they turned out so well, guys. Thanks for the introduction.
The bottle
Yeah.
was the star in those photos for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. I'm going to bring a bottle of that Solitary Coast just to share at the Victoria Whiskey Festival as well. So if you see me at the Victoria Whiskey Festival, you know, ask to see if I have any samples in my coat while I'm there, and I'll share one with you. The password is Trenny and C, just so you know. You're going to need a password.
We have autographed photos too.
Yeah, prints. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can buy your prints at trennyandc.com.
I do sign all the bottles. That's one thing that I do at the distillery, so which I value, and for other distilleries or distillers that are out there, sign your bottles. We value people who support us so much, and everybody that supported this tasting as well. I think it's just so important that we recognize those people that are supporting us at the ground level right now, because we've seen some distilleries, some whiskey distilleries close that are making fantastic whiskey, and they certainly need your support out there. So my name's Steve Lee. I operate Douglas Distillery. If you were saying it in Scottish Gaelic, which is my middle name, it's my father's middle name and my grandfather's first name, and he came from Glasgow, so I have a bit of Scottish heritage. So I named the distillery after myself without being too narcissistic and using my name in the distillery. I started distilling when I met Davin, actually, I think in Toronto. I'm trying to remember. I think it was the York Hotel when we first met. I think that was Whiskey Live in Toronto, I think, that first event. I used to distill in my ski resort staff accommodations as a hobby in Banff before I made the decision to move to the Okanagan and start the distillery in an area where I thought we would have an amazing opportunity to age whiskey in a hot, dry environment and really increase that interaction with the wood. And you know, I really believe the maturity is not measured with age. And I saw that in a lot of the whiskeys tonight. They're outstanding, and we really shouldn't measure them by age because there's some amazing whiskeys. And Anoka is a great example of something. It's not even 3 years old and is fantastic. So I moved to the Okanagan here in small town Oliver in the middle of a desert where we have cactus and scorpions and rattlesnakes to age our whiskey. The whiskey you're having right now, in British Columbia, we use, as a craft distiller, we use 100% BC malted barley. So everything that we do as a craft distillery has to be grown or produced in British Columbia, which has some restrictions to it. We're certainly proud to use BC barley, but there's some restrictions in the way that we don't have access to peated barley in British Columbia. I would love to use red shed, but we just can't cross those boundaries. So for us, we wanted to be a little bit more creative. We wanted to get peated whiskey. So this is whiskey that's been matured in Ardbeg, 10-year-old barrels, and Lafroig quarter cask. So this is a blend. We spent some time with Duval Gandhi at Odd Society a few years ago, learning some blending techniques, some BC distillers, and that really opened up our eyes to what the opportunity is to make great whiskey. So this is about 83%, a little over 83% Ardbeg and 17% Lafroig quarter cask. So you'll certainly get that kind of Ardbeg arrogance that's in there, kind of that heavy peat, but it finishes with the waft of that Lafroig quarter cask coming through. I get things like burnt marshmallow, very underlying characteristic of our spirit, which has those tropical fruit notes, bananas, which you will certainly get in Solitary Coast, which is our
Absolutely,
yeast
yeah.
strain and our fermentation techniques coming through. But this is fun, and I think as our industry and certainly as Douglas grows, we're going to have access to more whiskey, and you're going to see a lot more components to a blend being produced by us. And if you want a Canadian Whisky Week distillery exclusive, we are going to be releasing a malted rye whiskey within the next few months. So I didn't want to change the labels because it says single malt on there. So I figured if we did a malted rye, it would still fit into the single malt category. So we have a malted rye that we're going to be releasing in the next few months as well. So this is Peatnik. This is our rebellious whiskey. And because we can't get access to peated barley in British Columbia.
But I think Reece nailed some of the notes there, like that piney, minty. It's almost like a what did you call it? Like a wintergreen,
like a wintergreen kind of mint. I get some like herbal notes on it, and it's also has a nice level of sweetness. And for like where the location is, there's almost like this briny kind of vibe to it too. But really nice stuff. And it's cool that so far every release we've tried has been significantly different from each other, even though they all carry that like kind of you already have a signature to your distillery of like a profile, and that's pretty cool.
And it's also the thing that we found exciting about it this year was that we've been doing this for 10 years, but we're really just discovering Douglas now, you know? So it's like, we wanted to share that with everybody because we're like, if we're just discovering it now, we got to make sure everybody else knows about this too. So we did send it out in our Dram Club. I don't know if that was October or November, but one of our more recent Dram Clubs, we sent it out and shared it with our members too. So we're just excited to show it off as you are, I'm sure. But no, we really appreciate you sharing samples with us and getting it out to the people. So no, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Would you say, Steve Lee, that you have a house style with your releases?
I think one of the things certainly that is important with us is having a level of consistency. So I really like the house style. There's certainly a couple of exceptions to some of the single barrel releases that we've done that are definitely distinctly different. But I would say we have a house style, and Davin may agree with this as well because he seems to pick it up as well. Is we really have this tropical fruit kind of component to a lot of our whiskeys. And I think maybe because, you know, I'm producing our whiskeys and sampling them all the time, I could certainly pick that out in a lot of our whiskeys.
Yeah.
Each of your whiskeys is different, but they do have a house style.
Yeah.
And I'm really dying to see what your single malt rye tastes like.
I'll try and bring you a sample to Victoria. If I can get into the barrel there, it's buried behind some other barrels, but I'll try and pull a sample and bring it out.
Bring me some too. And training.
Yeah.
We'll take
man,
one.
I'm gonna have to bring a few bottles.
We'll take one.
Just bring the barrel.
Bring the barrel.
Bring me nothing left.
We have a question. Is the Peatnik not available anymore? I think one of the blessings and curses is that because you're so small batch, it's like you find a gem and then it's gone. Like it's hard to get bottles.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. You know, we have lineups at the distillery here when we do our whiskey release days. I've tried to make the releases bigger and to release more than one whiskey at the same time so that we don't sell out so quickly, because it's really important. Even if you visit the distillery, we may be sold out of whiskey, which happens a lot, but we do try and keep some whiskey here for sampling because I know that people are traveling and they're visiting. We want them to try our whiskey. The best way to get our whiskey is to purchase online. Our local liquor store, we do see those guys some liquor or some whiskey, so there's a chance that you may find some whiskey at their location after we've sold out. But the best way is really to purchase online. I mean, we would never sell to the people in Ontario, but if we did, we would ship with the courier in a nice, safe package. So
that was one of the questions. How do people in Ontario get your products?
Yeah, it's. I think that's certainly a conversation for off camera, but yeah, you could certainly purchase the product online, and we ship to various locations as well.
Jeff, you can DM me since I'm in Alberta.
I did have one question that just came as a text. Why was it bottled at 45.1% ABV? A lot of our whiskeys are at 46% and above. And sometimes math is hard. So I made a mistake, and this was supposed to be at 46% and ended up at being at 45.1%. So that's why it's a little bit lower. But I do find with our whiskey, generally speaking, I love Scotch whiskey at cask strength, with the odd exception. But I do find our whiskey really benefits with water, and I do enjoy it in that 20 to 30% range. I find it brings out a really nice underlying sweetness in our whiskey as well.
Agreed. I've had some drops of water in your whiskeys, and it brings out that sweetness. It's so good. Yeah. Cool.
That's great. Davin, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I saw Teresa put a comment up there a little while ago saying that she really loves that in Canada you can make single malt from any malted grain, and I really think like Canada is really moving the whole single malt category forward. As I said earlier, we're doing things here that the Scottish haven't even thought about, and that's why I'm really excited about your single malt rye. I know that Two Brewers is doing malted wheats and malted rye. And I know that Don had a malted corn out, a couple of batches. I think he didn't call it single malt, but it was single malt corn. So I'm telling you, we're going places, and this tasting tonight has truly demonstrated that. Or this afternoon, if you're in Alberta or BC.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about this tasting too, just to pat all of ourselves on our backs, is a lot of these releases or picks are kind of like this may be the only time you ever get to taste them because they are small batch or single barrel release or like barrel picks. And so savor what you're drinking right now is my comment on that.
One thing that's been so great about this whole experience today has been the fact that there's such variety in every single whiskey that we've tried. Like that is what's the most exciting part of Canadian whiskey right now. Like the single malts to the corns to the blends, every single version of what we've tried today has been so different from each other. And the fact that everyone that's had a chance to pick these whiskeys throughout the day have found something really, really good in each of them.
Yeah, and we didn't even coordinate our picks either. It was all just like separate and organic, which I think is really cool. And it just happened to have like a huge variety of different styles and profiles and everything. So
it shows the palate is different for everybody, but there's something for everybody, which is really cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trenny C. Stevely. Looking forward to some autographed photos of Trenny and Pete Nick bottle at Victoria Whiskey Festival this week. See you guys there.
See you next week.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for having us, by the way. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that leads us to our final whiskey presentation of the afternoon / early evening. And then we're going to have another outro song from Chris. And in the way in which I organized the different or what order people were going to present in, I wanted to try and have like the peated expressions at the end, but also Graham loves to talk, I know. So I thought I'd save the chattiest person for last as well on this. So to introduce Graham is the lovely Bobby, who I feel like I hadn't actually seen his face until he agreed to be part of this tasting experience. He's definitely like one of those quietly influential figures in Canadian whiskey and whiskey in general who prefers to let the community speak louder than the spotlight on himself. So Bobby's based in Southern Ontario and has built one of the most active and engaged grassroots whiskey communities in the region, being the co-founder of the Southern Ontario Sippers. And they're really known for doing kind of thoughtful, really nerdy tastings on whiskey and other spirits. So they don't just do whiskey, but they do a lot of whiskey. Beyond community building, Bobby has also collaborated with distilleries on barrel selections, including Macaloni, and is the co-host of the Unpoured Perspectives podcast, and then also is now a spirits portfolio advisor for an agency in Alberta. So if we think about Canadian whiskey behind the scenes being an engine room, I feel like Bobby is truly like the chief engineer in that kind of keeps the industry running behind the scenes. So Bobby, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Also, I'd like to thank everybody else. I know it was fun when we were chatting to put this all together with all the hosts. It's fun working with the other influencers that do kind of the same thing across the country, which is always fun. I'm definitely more of a behind the scenes kind of guy. I like to use the connections wisely and to promote whiskey. With the podcast over the last year, it's been fun to try lots of Canadian whiskey that I probably wouldn't have got to try. So Bridgeland was part of the stuff that we got. Actually, many of the distilleries across Canada that maybe a lot of people haven't heard of were definitely super nice and willing to send out bottles to send. And then obviously doing the group, doing whiskey picks. I mean, we've done 15 or 16 private casks, but we do have 3 Canadian whiskeys in the portfolio, which we did do two Macaloni's picks. So we did a peated ex-bourbon cask and then a classic ex-bourbon cask to just show the difference. I've also had the fortunate enough to do a pick with Last Straw as well. So it's always fun to work with. There we go. It's still sealed, I see. You haven't opened it yet. Come on. But it's fun. I had the opportunity to chat with Graham a little bit. Obviously, they've had some changes at the distillery. I know Margaret was super nice in helping arrange this tasting as well, and also I've had the opportunity to pour at a couple events in Toronto, and it's fun to see people come up to the table, and they're like, "Well, who are you?" And it's surprisingly in Ontario and sad that most people don't know who Macaloni's was, but as soon as they tasted it, their eyes lit up. Many of the people came back to the table 2-3 times because they're like, "This is the best whiskey at the event," which I agree. I think they make really good single malts. They do have a couple. I have a couple behind me here. They do a rye and they have a wheat, which is very interesting as well. So they're expanding. But I believe that they make some of the best single malts in Canada, but also some of the best peated single malts in Canada. Along with that, I mean, we're having the whiskey today. The sister whiskey of Today's Expression actually won Canadian Whiskey of the Year. They're the reigning whiskey of the year at the Victoria Whiskey Awards. Graham won Whiskey Blender of the Year last year, and then also all the peat projects. Like I said, I think they make the best peated whiskey in Canada. And as far as that goes, we're having the single cask series distillery smoke Washington peat aged in Portuguese wine STR Barrique. So a whole mouthful to say, but it'll also take you on a long journey. So on that note, I'll hand it over to Graham.
Thank you very much, Bobby, and thank you also, Reece and Davin, for putting on this very excellent online event. As a counter to Reece's comment, the only reason I talk a lot is because usually I require someone to interpret my thick Scottish accent. And so it usually takes a bit longer for people to understand me. But with that said, what I'd like to do is take a couple of minutes just to introduce you to our distillery. Hopefully this is going to work. I'm going to throw up a couple of slides quickly. I won't take long with these because I know we all want to get into the whiskey. But as Bobby alluded to, we've been very fortunate with the World Whiskey Awards in London, where the world competes. Scotland, Japan, Ireland, Canada, everyone competes there. We've actually taken 3 world's best gold medals at the Worlds. And it turns out that since 2020, we're in the top 4 on the planet for the most gold medals, which I was absolutely shocked to find out recently. Very proud of. I'm also extremely proud of the fact that at the prestigious Canadian Whisky Awards, which Davin founded, as Bobby alluded to last year, we won Whisky of the Year, which is the first time a peated whiskey had ever taken Best Single Malt.
Sorry, can I just interrupt real quick? Graham, is there a way to just turn your microphone up just a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know if I can. What I'll do is I'll I'll come in a bit closer and I'll enunciate a little bit more clearly if that helps. Very proud that Davin's Canadian Whisky Awards that we did take Whisky of the Year for the Moscatel peated whisky, the sister of this one, and then of course Whisky Blender of the Year. And here's a shot of the pot stills and the tours, and you can see there's a map there. So we're literally on the outskirts of Victoria. Great time to come and visit this time of year. We don't have any snow here, and it's +8 degrees. You could come and do a round of golf, watch the whales, and then warm yourself up at the Victoria-based Macaloni's distillery here with our tours, which are 5-star tours. You can see the pot stills, they're for scythes. Made in Scotland, best equipment on the planet. Half the Scotch industry uses for scythes, as well as the Irish distillers. And those pot stills are, the spirit still on the right-hand side is actually the same size as Macallan's, just to give you a sense of the scale. Lots of people have done Scotch tours, but when they come do our tours, they say these are some of the best tours that they've ever experienced. So check out our website for the tour times and please come and visit. To explain our whisky range, I've been a lifelong connoisseur, being a doctor of whisky, a doctor of fermentation, and also a biochemical engineer. There's a little bit of mad scientist aspect to it. And so you can see that we do 3 very different styles of whisky beyond the experimental rye and wheat that Bobby just talked about. So on the right-hand side, you can see we do the triple pot still whiskies. That Kildara actually won World's Best at the World Whisky Awards. It took on and beat a 27-year-old Redbreast. And then moving in from the right-hand side, you'll see we do a range of classic single malts, again, gold medal winners. But then on the left, you can see that we've got a big lineup of peated single malts, one of which you're going to try tonight. And we kind of, the top row is your kind of signature expressions. That's where I, as master whiskey maker, will marry several casks together. And then the ones on the bottom are the single cask series, which we've branded as the Peat Project, which is an exploration of terroir and merroir. And we're going to get into that very shortly here. Bottom note on there is that we do have a single cask program. So if you're interested, whether it's an Irish style classic single malt or peated single malts, we're happy to do custom bottled single casks for you. So here's the peat project. I wanted control over the peating method. I wanted to do traditional peat smoking as done on Islay, but using great Canadian ingredients. So yes, we use local Canadian barley because it's much more flavoursome than the Scotch barley that they use in Scotland and Ireland. Depending on your bandwidth, this might come across, but you can see the peat smoker there in action. We believe it's the first largest commercial scale peat smoker in the world outside of Scotland. We do 2,000 kilograms of Canadian barley per batch, while at Lafroig, they're doing about 7,000 kilograms, right? So it's a serious scale that we're doing this at, where we're peat smoking local barley with a variety of different peats. The peat project itself, the peat project itself, you can see we started off exploring terroir with using local Washington peat. Then I had a blast of fun bringing in some local West Coast seaweed, sugar kelp no less, and burned the sugar kelp with the local peat. And both of those expressions both took World's Best at the World Whisky Awards in the form of new make. So you know that as our peaty whiskies are maturing, they're starting from an amazing base. We've also recently done Islay peat, and it was recently released, so you can check that out online at our website. So it's peat that I brought in all the way from the island of Islay in Scotland here to Canada and then smoked it on that unit. And then I'm very excited to say we've got some local Vancouver Island peat sitting in the warehouse. It'll take a wee while for it to mature yet. So if you sign up for a newsletter or a whiskey club that we're about to launch on the website, there's a whiskey club coming, then you'll get a first notice on when the Vancouver Island peat terroir comes out. And then, of course, there's an element of provenance as well with the wide variety of single casks. We've got a fantastic wood program here at Macaloni's. So yeah, so there's what the whiskey, our new website looks like. The whiskey you're going to try tonight is actually a gold medal winner at the World Whiskey Awards. So yes, it took Best in Canada, and it took a gold medal at the World Whiskey Awards. And there's currently a 10% discount on that if you check us out online. So enough of that. Let's get into the actual whiskey itself. Am I doing okay, Reece? We're on time?
We're over time, but we already were before you, so.
Oh yeah, generally speaking, yeah. So here's the whiskey. You'll see that it's got a beautiful sort of red wine color to it, because this is from a Portuguese red wine cask, and it's the special Chef Toast Rechar casks. Okay, all natural color, no caramel added. All of that color is coming from the wine cask, because as you know, new make whiskey is clear when it comes off the pot stills. When you shake it in your glass, you're going to see beautiful viscous legs trickling down the glass. And that can give you an anticipation that it's going to be a very creamy, velvety mouthfeel when we get into sipping this whiskey. And that comes from a second yeast that we deliberately put into the fermentation that presents some natural oils, and a slightly longer fermentation than normally done in Scotland to build up those oils. So beautiful, velvety mouthfeel. On the nose, yes, you're getting our house style of lots of tropical fruit. Really, compared with most Scotches, you'll find our whiskey super fruity as a house style. But behind that fruitiness, you're getting on the nose, I would say, a delicate peat note. It's reminiscent of burning heather and maybe some bonfire. It's not got the big medicinal notes that you know can put off the general whiskey drinker. This is a very, very approachable whiskey. Even for people new to single malt whiskey, it's very, very approachable because it's got that sort of familiar kind of bonfire, burning wood, burning heather note. But I would say on the nose, if everyone presents differently here, but on the nose, I would say that this is a kind of a medium peat on the nose, yet it's 55 ppm, right? That is on the same scale as your big Islay whiskies, 55 ppm. That would be, you know, considered a very high ppm. Delicate on the nose, but on the palate, it really explodes. So hard to talk and drink at the same time. So yeah, you're getting huge bonfire notes, tropical fruit still coming through. Excellent wood presentation, because this is actually a Chef Toast Rechar cask, which has been retoasted for excellent conversation with the wood. You get wonderful delicate wood spices, vanilla notes, and some other delicate spices. This is American oak. It's a crocodile char, so that does help with the kind of the presentation of the peat. But as the palate develops, you're getting layers of flavour there beyond the fruitiness and the bonfire and the heather, the burning heather notes. And you're starting to get into other notes there. There is that kind of red wine note. For me, it's presenting a little bit like kind of strawberry jam tonight for me. It might present differently to you, some kind of a red berry note that you might pick up. And there's also, as you really focus on the flavour profile, you're going to start to pick up a natural caramel note. Might present either as caramel or toffee or butterscotch. And that's actually coming from the Chef Toast Rechar process, because that red wine, when it gets toasted, it's soaked in the cask, and when it gets toasted, you're actually naturally caramelizing the red wine. So really a lovely whiskey with lots of layers of complexity, and I'm very, very pleased that Bobby chose this one to present tonight. So Slán Siva. Happy to take any questions if anyone has any questions about the whiskey.
I'd like to say too, just to add, no, definitely scan the barcode. Brand new website, new pricing structure. It's more affordable than ever to get a bottle of Macaloni's into your hands. It's much nicer, clean, sharp looking website too. And then the whiskey speaks for itself.
Do we have any questions? Sorry, I'm just going through the chat, but seems like, again, lots of positive accolades for Macaloni.
My sound has kind of gone out, so I'm not sure, Graham, if you talked about the sugar kelp, because that's really something that I thought was just fantastic. Can't hear me?
Thank you for that, Davin. Yes, when I mentioned about the fact that we're exploring terroir with different types of peat, right? You know, Scottish peat and Canadian peat and local Washington peat. This sugar kelp, it took a gold medal, I believe, at the Canadian Whisky Awards. It's had a gold at the Worlds as well, and it's our exploration of merroir, if you will. Yes, we're an island distillery already, so when the angel share gets exchanged with local sea air, ocean air, you'll get in the back of the palate a hint of salt, some lovely maritime notes. But as Davin alluded to, we wanted to take that to another level by collecting sugar kelp that's farmed by local First Nations, and then burning that alongside. When we released it, the first cask sold out overnight. Within 3 days, the Germans in Europe grabbed a cask as well. We released another cask here in Canada, sold out within a week. So we do have other casks in the warehouse. I can't tell you off the top of my head when they're going to release. It's going to be in the 6 to 9 month range, but follow the newsletter or join the Whisky Club online and you'll get an early bird access to that next sugar kelp. But it's quite spectacular, this extra maritime note that you get from that added seaweed. Absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for acknowledging that, Davin.
All right, we did have a question. Was there any specific inspiration for the Portuguese STR barrels?
I'm a big fan of the STR barrels. When I was founding the distillery, I brought in a chap called Dr. Jim Swan, who was called the Einstein of whiskey. A Scotsman, fellow Scot, used to work at what is now called the Scotch Whisky Research Institute. And he was essentially your researcher, right? So I'm the whiskey maker, Jim's the researcher, if you will. And I used Jim as a consultant, and he had invented this new cask treatment. Hitherto, all wine casks would be emptied of the wine and sent dripping wet to the distillery to be filled with whiskey. Jim said, no, I'll send this dripping wet cask back to the cooperage. We'll shave the old charcoal. We'll give it a new toast, we'll shave it, we'll toast it, we'll re-char it. And you end up with, because you re-toast it, you break down the wood structure. It allows a deeper conversation between the whiskey and the wood. And it really brings out beautiful colors and wood spices. And it also allows for a higher angel share. We actually have a 7 to 8% angel share. And I think that's a great attribute. I mean, you think a Scotsman would be appalled at losing all that whiskey each year. But 7 or 8% angel share is giving me deep, deep oxidative maturation. And that's why our Kildare, for example, beat a 27-year-old redbreast for world's best. And it was only 4 years old, 3.5 years old. So in our whiskies, we get this deep oxidative maturation, and the shave toast rechar and local climatic conditions are definitely help towards that.
Trying to figure out whose mic is on. Sorry. Do I mute them? Whoever it is having a good time.
Having technical difficulties.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. Davin, do you have any commentary on Macoloni?
Well, I was, I have to say, really blown away with the Macoloni whiskeys that I tasted last year for the Canadian Whisky Awards. It was really kind of fun because like they swept the awards, and that's something like that's not happened before. And I remember Graham, we called him up, and then we called him up again, and he was looking more and more bewildered as he came up here. It was like, like here's a guy who's really good at promoting his whiskeys, and it's like I don't know. Did you think we were playing a joke on you or something, man? Because those whiskeys that you entered last year were really quite one after another phenomenal, and I mean, it's been a hard, long struggle for you, and it was really, kind of like the culmination of a lot of misery that you came out with those wonderful whiskeys. Did you just turn a corner in 2024, or what happened?
I think I mean, we're still thank you, Davin. And, the Canadian Whisky Awards are just absolutely fantastic. That's why I was so flabbergasted at going up so many times to collect all these gold medals. I mean, I think it's the patient planning is now delivering. Yes, as the founder, entrepreneur, and major shareholder of the company, it's been a tough struggle, and it's been fantastic that we've got a new local investor on board and a new CEO that's going to take our sales and marketing to a new level. But the whiskey is coming of age, and I'm just excited. We're going to be launching some more. There's going to be a Harvest Coast and a Cathedral Grove that are recently launched, and I'm hoping they're going to pick up a bunch of gold medals soon as well. So yeah, we're on the up and up here, and hopefully we'll continue to get a few medals from the Canadians in the World Whisky Awards going forwards.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Davin. Thank you to both you and Reece, because the whiskey education that you guys do brings so many people to all of us craft distillers here across the country. And that really is what's making Canada a great place to live and work and have fun with whiskey.
Thank you. All right. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of our formal, well, semi-formal portion of this afternoon/early evening. And we wanted to have Chris come on again to do one more song as an outro. Before that, I just want to thank everybody so much. It's actually incredible that there was over 100 people logged in for this tasting, and I look forward to seeing more commentary when we post this video. And so, Davin, do you have anything else to say as well? I'm going to stick around after, but I'll stop recording after this.
Well, I was blown away by this session today. So many great whiskeys. It's just so gratifying, and it's great to know that for each wonderful whiskey that we tasted today, there are at least 5 others out there in Canada, really wonderful whiskeys. Now, I'm going to disappear for a minute because I'm having some technical difficulties here. I'm going to sign out, and Bobby's going to sign me back in. So, but I'm going to be back, and I'll stick around till the very end because this is really a wonderful thing that you've done, Reece. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Of course.
Before you sign out there, Davin, we just want to say again, thank you for having us, and you guys were amazing hosts.
Yeah, great job.
So great job, and we're looking forward to year 3.
Davin will be back. Don't worry.
I'll be back as soon as Bobby can sign me back in. Thanks.
All right. Take it away, Chris. Thank you.
All right, folks, thanks for hanging out. This is called Whiskey Prayer. This is a song I do at a lot of tastings before the tasting, but this is also good at the end of the tasting. So it's to all the different types of whiskey drinkers out there. Cheers, everyone. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. To all the whiskey drinkers, the late night thinkers, the dream chasers, and the memory erasers, I say cheers and amen. To those who like to take it slow, those who drink too fast, those who need a few ice cubes to water down their glass, I say cheers and amen. And to the weekend warrior, the Monday morning soul destroyer, the pop mixer, those in search of euphoria, I say cheers and amen. To those with fancy cups and their tasting notes, distinguished palateers with discernment in your nose, I say cheers and amen. This song's for you. I raise a glass. I wish you nothing but the very best. This song's for everyone. I'll make a toast to always drink whiskey with the ones you love the most. Hear my whiskey prayer. Hey, hey, hey. Hear my whiskey prayer. Hey, 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 hey. To those who were struggling to make ends meet, I can't afford good whiskey to keep you on beat, I say cheers and amen. To the heartbroken drinkers, the drinkers in love, and those who drink too much cause they can't get enough, I say cheers and amen. To the happy, the sad, the good, the bad, to anyone who drinks, make a laugh in the same, I say cheers. This song's for you. I'll raise a glass. I wish you nothing but the very best. This song's for everyone. I'll make a toast to always drink whiskey with the ones you love the most. Hear my whiskey prayer. Hey, hey, hey. Hear my whiskey prayer. Hey, 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 hey. Hear my whiskey prayer. Hey, 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 hey. Hear my whiskey prayer. Hey, 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 hey. Somebody pray for me. I love whiskey. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Hear my whiskey prayer. Cheers, everybody. Woo!
Yay! Oh my gosh, that was so perfect as an outro. Thank you so much, Chris. And again,
Thanks, Reece.
thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Unmute me. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, again, for being here. I really appreciate it. This is phenomenal, beyond expectation in terms of the turnout for this inaugural event. We will definitely be doing it again next year, but sorry to the distillers who are on. We'll probably do an all new lineup next year just because we want to spread the love, of course. But what you can do if you are still on the call is stick around if you want to have a chit chat, take yourself off mute, have some banter for the next hour. And for those of you that do like Canadian whiskey, which I hope all of you do because you're here, please, please, please make sure to post about the Canadian whiskeys that you like this upcoming week, any kind of cocktails, fun facts about Canadian whiskey, and tag hashtag Canadian Whiskey Week or My Canadian Pour. And we want to see and kind of just take over the internet with Canadian whiskey content this upcoming week. And for those of you who will be in Victoria, I look forward to seeing you there as well. And I also look forward to seeing all of the new award winners at the Canadian Whiskey Awards, which are happening on Thursday. So with that, I'm going to officially sign off and stop recording. And again, thanks everybody. And I hope you have an amazing rest of the evening. Yay.
Cheers. Cheers.